minus skill. The story of 4 nuisances that once gathered together, manifested a synergy that created the strongest party. By Kosuzu. Kiichi. Chapter 1. Alvin, I'm sorry, but I want you to leave the party. We were by the seat near the wall of the tavern that seats 2 people. When the party leader, a man of the sorcerer class, said those words to me, soberness kicked in me like a horse. Huh? I've already found a swordsman to replace you, truth be told. You don't need to show up anymore. And no, wait up. I take a deep breath to suppress my agitation, trying to talk calmly all the way. Why so? I should be the one who has contributed the most to the party. I have the highest level out of anyone, and the number of skills I have is more than anyone else's. Aren't I your greatest asset? Alvin. The reason you 6th layer straddlers can even go deeper into the 20th layer is because I went out of my way and power leveled with every one of you. Despite all of that, why? Enough is enough. The sorcerer suddenly shouted, then heaved a heavy sigh. Alvin. You should already have an inkling, right? Q. Do I need to spell it out? Open your status and have a long, hard look. Come on now, open it. Voila, there's your answer. With a face of anguish, I wave the fingers of my left hand. The sorcerer then points at the translucent status window that appeared out of thin air. Look at the skills section. Oh my, what's that? At the very bottom of the powerful skills you were born with? Even without him telling me, my gaze already naturally moves towards there. A list of 7 skills were lined up. From swordsmanship to strength buff, large and agility buff, medium, so on and so forth. Most of them are useful for my class. A swordsman. But there's just one thing. At the bottom of the list was an accursed skill that could be called as the price you would pay for being blessed with an abundance of skills. Drop rate reduction, special class, no matter how many monsters you kill, almost no items drop. The man voices out his dissatisfaction as he fixes his glasses. There's barely any profit diving deeper into the dungeon. It even ends up in a deficit. Huh? If it weren't for me, you guys wouldn't even be able to dive into the deeper levels. And if we're talking about deficits, it's just proof of my burden increasing because of diving on a level that doesn't match the average level of the party. I tried to stop you guys, but you weren't having any of it. You're right. And so with that, we'll be parting with you here. We'll go to a level which suits us. Around the 15th level. Huh? The 15th layer, you say? I burst out in a laugh. You people? The same ones who've been monkeying around in the lower levels until I came along? Don't make me laugh. What about it? Your abilities are just not cut out for it. If you dive into that layer without me, you'll just meet a bitter end. It's the appropriate level range, in terms of level range, sure. And so? Now that you're powerful enough, you are firing the one who is to level you up, my minus skill having self, is that it? That's the party's consensus. Accept it. Fine, then. My strength leaves me, so I lean back to the chair, exhausted. I don't want to think about it anymore. The sorcerer placed a single gold coin on the table and stood up. Here's the payment. You can keep the change. Call it a small parting gift from me, if you will. This recompense is a mistake. To my words, the sorcerer who has his back turned to me looks back. To be honest, I never liked you. You're rotten to the core and patronizing. While I am sympathetic to your circumstances, I'd fix your flaws if I were you. But I guess even if you change for the better, you'd be hard-pressed finding a party to accept you. I reflexively grabbed the gold coin and tried to throw it at his back. And stopped. Tisk, I click my tongue as I down my tepid drink. So this is how it comes down to again, a party that would accept me? I know how hard it is to be no better than anyone else. After all, I've been adventuring with a huge drawback all this time. Drop rate reduction, special class. Chapter 2. Through the glass window, the rain was falling. While lying on the bed of the inn I'm lodged at, I stared blankly at my status window. Written there was level 43, along with my various parameters such as my STR and AG and my skills. I sigh. What a troublesome thing. How much hardship have I gone through all because of this? Things such as skills. No. The status itself, I wish it never existed. According to what Magi of the long past have discerned, this world seems to be a simulation. The reason we have statuses. The reason monsters drop loot when they die. The reason it sometimes rains like this. The reason people cry and laugh. Is because this world is a simulated ecosystem. A miniature garden, if you will. I close my status window and sigh. So what? It doesn't matter. Whether or not this world is a simulation, the reality in front of us remains the same. I've never heard of an adventurer who cares about the truth of this world, and I share the same sentiment. All that matters to me are my present concerns. I'm hungry. I hollowly muse. It's a simulated world, yet I'm hungry. I don't even have the energy to put anything in my mouth right now. How many times have I got kicked out of a party? To be frank, I'm strong. Having a level of 43 is the standard number that most adventurers would barely even reach by the time they're considering retirement. On top of that, thanks to parameter increasing skills like strength buff, large and agility buff, medium, my stats are higher than what my level is supposed to have. I can even dive into the deeper levels solo. Although it's me saying it, as a swordsman, you couldn't hope for a better person. I should have been a highly sought-after vanguard. If only I didn't have such a huge drawback skill named drop rate reduction. That's right. Skills. I was born with 7 of them. A normal adventurer would have 2 or 3 at most. Most people even have a flat 0. So having 7 is extraordinary. It looks like people blessed with skills like me, sometimes appear in this world. It's just that. As if to balance out the numbers, such people always possess a special skill that's not found in others. And that's what's called a minus skill. What's a minus skill, you ask? It's simple, really. You can say it's a skill that brings about a disadvantage. Parameter reducing types like STR reduction is not uncommon. There are also things like clumsy, which inhibits the success of specific techniques. Those with minus skills like experience decrease and level limit rarely become adventurers but end up plowing fields or become apprentices at a workshop or a merchant instead. My drop rate decrease is essentially one such skill. Being strong as an adventurer isn't the to-be-all and end-all, they need to make a living out of it as well. There's a reason people with skills such as drop rate increase or money luck or even people good at bookkeeping are much appreciated in any party. Looking at it from that angle, my existence is like a plague incarnate. After all, the drop rate of items and coins decreases by 80% when I kill a monster. Getting kicked out of parties is logically sound. It doesn't mean I'll stop from adventuring because of that. Sigh. I wish there was no such thing as a status. If this was a world where everything is decided by effort, how great it would have been. It's been 5 years since I became an adventurer at the age of 14. I've reached this high of a level mostly solo. I'm proud of the fact that I've worked harder than anyone else. It's of great fortune that I have died so far with my reckless way of leveling. I don't have the luck skill. There's no two ways about it, even if I am rotten. I've had enough. I need to break out of this situation. This is the only way, I guess. I picked up a piece of paper from the table by my bedside. If there was a way to get out of this rut, it's there. On the piece of paper was a note scribbled in my handwriting. Information about a recently found dungeon was copied into it from the bulletin board in the Adventurers Guild. Dungeons can disappear as new ones can be created. Aside from the large dungeons that a lot of adventurers make their living off of, smaller ones were often born near its surrounding areas and disappear if the boss monster is defeated. One of those small-scale dungeons was recently discovered, and a rumor about it has been on my mind. They say that one of the items dropped by the boss monster removes a skill that one possesses. In these dungeons, there are times when cryptic clues on how to clear the dungeon are written on its walls or in scraps of paper inside a treasure chest and the like. From what can be decoded in the flavor texts, there's apparently a description that can be interpreted as such. After that fact was established, the number of parties trying to clear the dungeon has dropped dramatically. It's even courteously written as a hint so that item would be one of the main drops, no doubt about it. But there's no such thing as a person who would bother removing their skill. That is, except for the ones with a minus skill such as me. Because there are no rare monsters that appear, and the value of the boss drop is unknown. There were almost no parties diving into that dungeon nowadays. So I can't expect someone to beat the boss and sell the item on the market. I have to do it myself. Since I can't form a party, I have to go about it alone. I know that it's practically a reckless endeavor. Even if my level is high, and the dungeon isn't all that large, it's still insane to challenge the boss solo. It may be so. But this was the only way for me to continue living as an adventurer. Rather, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Once someone has cleared the dungeon, a second chance won't come around. A bit lost in thought, I get up from my bed. Before I go on an adventure, I need to stock on potions and foods. Chapter 3. A few days later. It was raining until dawn today, but now a rainbow hangs across the sky. I was now standing in front of my target dungeon. There is a huge hole in the mountainside. The entrance leading underground is surrounded by a geometric pattern made of stone. Of course, this wasn't a man-made object, but naturally sprung forth from the time of the dungeon's creation. I scan around, but I see no one. With popular large dungeons, there would be stalls lined up near the entrance selling potions, food, and equipment along with touts and large groups of adventurers making noise. But the place here is the opposite. In line with that, I didn't pass anyone when I came here. It's a typical scene in an underpopulated dungeon. Well, it's not like it matters. It's rather favorable having no rivals that are vying for the same thing. The preparations are already set. There's nothing more to buy. With that in mind, I step into the dungeon. Passing through the entrance, I notice something written by the wall. It's rather difficult to see in the dark, but I managed to read it by changing angles. The old man answered, "Alas! This body has wasted away, the holy sword has rusted, and the energy to use the magic arts has also dried up. However, I am yet, the cave of the setting sun, I surmise the true meaning of this text. It appears to be the vestiges of what's known as flavor text. There are always a number of meaningful passages left in dungeons. It is largely ignored once a dungeon has been cleared to a certain extent with the release of information, but it contains important clues like information about a boss gimmicks, data on the monsters that appear, and even location of safe zones in hidden rooms. For adventurers who want to be the first to clear the dungeon first, it's more valuable than treasure. It's just that this doesn't seem to be the case this time. Parts of it are unreadable, but it's like just an introduction to the dungeon. The Cave of the Setting Sun, huh? It was the name of the dungeon. It also displayed its name in my status as my current location. What does it mean? The names of the dungeons indicate what its characteristics are, such as the Great Ice Den and Spirit Bone Corridor, but I don't have a clue about this one. Sunset. Decline. Waning. I can't figure it out. I still don't know. I stop thinking and head further in. Chapter 4. I swing my sword downwards. The paralyzed slime scatters its yellow body in 4 pieces as the last of its remaining HP is shaved off. I take a breath. I have already reached the 17th layer of the dungeon. This place is unlike the lower levels, like the 10th one and below. This place is in the middle levels of the dungeon. The monsters that appear here have grown stronger in accordance, so even with a decent party, a beginner would not have an easy time. Though I am at level 43, so there was still a huge gap. Soloing through it is no problem. It's just that. Looking at the ground, I breathe a sigh of disappointment. The bodies of the spluttered monsters have already disappeared, but nothing remains. Sure enough, it dropped nothing. In normal cases, even at the worst of times, it should at least drop a coin. This was business as usual for me, though. It's always been like this ever since I became an adventurer. Even then it was still a depressing sight. Probably because I've just recently witnessed my party members defeat a monster up close and had theirs drop an item. This skill is just the worst. I once again come to understand the feeling of the people who have kicked me out. Even I'm fed up with it. Fortunately though, it didn't affect the bosses and fixed monster drops, so I had high hopes for this dungeon. I have to bring down the boss no matter what and get that item to erase my skill. But leaving that aside for now. What a weird dungeon. In the lower levels, the usual slimes and skeletons appeared. But the moment I set in the middle layers, fire attribute monsters like the lesser salamanders and heat slimes have come out. That's why I thought for sure this dungeon is for fire attribute types. But I've been encountering abnormal status appliers like elect spiders and paralyzed slimes. Just what kind of dungeon is this place? Well, I did hear about some dungeons crop up occasionally with unidentifiable classifications. After mulling over things, I resumed walking, and then, I heard a scream. I stop and quickly open my status window, opening the map section. I match the mapped areas with the direction of the voice and head out in a sprint. This place is part of the lower middle tiers, plus monsters that apply abnormal status effects are a dime a dozen, so there was a likelihood that there might just be a party in danger. Getting nearer, the sounds of combat and monsters become louder. And then I find the source. A band of goblins. The yellowish skin it brandishes indicates it's probably a yellow goblin equipped with its signature dagger containing a paralyzing poison. On the rear side, there was a figure of a yellow goblin archer equipped with a bow and arrow. And finally, the goblin's opponent was swinging a cleric's mace. Is a girl. Judging from her equipment, her job class seems to be that of a priestess. There was no one around who looked like her party members. In other words, she's alone. The girl looked desperate as she swung her mace while she gradually retreated as she's being pushed back by the goblins. There was already a poisonous arrow stuck to her shoulders. I kick the ground running and strike at the goblin that was approaching the girl. Now, standing in front of the girl, I shout out as I look upon the goblins. Are you okay? Can you cure your status? Why yes. Patch yourself up then. I'll wall them off. As I said that, I stab through the thin part of the neck, extinguishing its existence. A monster like this could be defeated with a single hit from full HP if you can strike its weak spot. I then deflect the poison arrows coming my way using one of my swordsmanship skills, parry, while sending the head of one of them flying. I kick one that was approaching, then continue on to break the defense of one that was holding a shield by using another skill, Zantetsu, the sword that cuts iron, as I cut the shield into two. With this, I'll annihilate the horde of goblins alone. I can do this much. Don't underestimate a hardcore soloist. 2 more to go. The last 2 goblins charge at me at the same time. I defeat the one with reduced HP without difficulty. But while I got preoccupied with that, the other slipped right past me. I turn around to shout. One of them is headed there. Once I looked, the girl had already raised her mace. She then swung down on the final yellow goblin that drew near her. The goblin's head splendidly catches the mace, its body scattering the blow. In the midst of the goblin's evaporation, which also dropped an item, the girl laughs with a mixture of anxiety and relief. Looks like I brought it down. Chapter 5. After the fight, we relied on the map to return to the checkpoint and had decided to rest there. No monster would come near where a small spring wells up. There are places like this in every dungeon. Thank you. Thank you. The girl bows her head towards me repeatedly as she thanked me. The poison arrow that struck her disappeared as soon as the goblin was defeated, and it looks like she's fully recovered with her own recovery magic. I reply while waving my hand, motioning for her to stop. It's okay. Adventurers should help their own when they can, yes. But you still saved my life. Call me Kokoru. I'm a priestess. The name's Elven. As you can see, I'm a swordsman. Then and there, I cautiously ask about something I've been curious about. But, why is a priestess alone in this place? Could it be that? No. It's not like my party was wiped out or anything. I came here alone from the beginning. I went in solo. Is that so? That's good then, I let out a breath of relief. It's not uncommon for adventurers to lose their lives in a dungeon. There isn't any physical effect, no matter what kind of attack a monster does. There's pain and shock and you might get hurt if you fall over, but besides that, you just reduce your HP. But that's just it. If your HP reaches 0, you die. The dead can't be revived with any healing magic or item. It was an ironclad rule for adventurers here in the dungeon. I then continue speaking. That's a relief. I was sure of it since you were a lone person as a healer. Ahaha. But did you really come out here solo? I look at Kokoru. She wore accessories fit for a clerical class, has light blue hair hanging down and an innocent face that incites a desire to protect her. She is a priestess on all accounts. There were branching paths like paladins and battle monks. But I have a hard time believing that the girl in front of me is of a combat class. And it even comes to me as a surprise that she dived this deep in the dungeon in one piece. It was bad manners asking others how they go about their own adventuring. But I still can't help but ask. It might not be my business to ask this, but isn't that reckless? I've never heard of a priest soloing. This isn't even the lower strata, but the middle one. Ahaha. I wish I could have come with someone else too, but I couldn't find anyone willing to party up with me, as a priest. I raise an eyebrow. Generally speaking, a healer-type class is an essential part of a party. Lack thereof means a spike in accident rate. Even with a low level, I'm sure that there's a suitable party for her out there. Hee. Well, actually No, I guess it would be quicker to show you. Saying so, Kokoru opens her own stats. And closes in beside me to show it. Since we haven't formed a party, she can't show her stats if she doesn't do it just like this, but this is quite a sudden shock. To begin with, people don't show their stats to others unless you're very close friends. Even party members don't get the entire picture. Please look at this. Regardless of what I have to say, Kokoru turns her status screen to show me. And then when I see it, my eyes are agape in shock. Level 80? It was a number that defies logic. I haven't even heard of it, even as a rumor. Even if I continue diving into the depths of the dungeon solo for the rest of my days, I might not even reach that high. But the girl in front of me is probably younger than me and with a non-combat class like a priest to boot. I can't wrap my head round it. Ahaha, how embarrassing, and no. It's more like, your parameters are amazing. Could it be you didn't even need my help? Why did you scream at goblins of that caliber? I was surprised to see so many of them coming out of nowhere. But it's still true that I was saved by you. I'm not very good at fighting after all, so. Although, she was still on level 80. Even as a solo priest, a layer of this degree is child's play. Not there. Can I have you take a look at the skills instead, please? At her words, I drop my gaze downwards to the skills section. I was once again surprised. There was a lot, 11 to be exact. My 7 was plenty enough, but her 11 surpasses it by a wide margin. Looking at the contents, there were things like enhanced healing magic, MP buff, large, protection, favor, lined up. They were all skills suitable for a priest. However, down at very bottom of the list, the last skill's name caught my eye. It's a skill I've never heard of. Is this? I actually possess a minus skill. Kokoru says in shame. It was like getting an answer key to my questions. My minus skill is called the Usurper of Severed Heads. Chapter 6. This is a minus skill. Yes. Unusual, right? I don't know anyone else who has one. Ha. Kokoru laughs. Thanks to this, I'm now at such a high level. But in return, I'm unable to join any party. I'm confused. Wait, what does that mean? What does the skill actually do? Its effect is very simple. When the other members of the party kill a monster, the kill is credited to me. Without fail. The party members. Some skills like the benevolent god's favor and effect sharing affect all registered party members. Could Kokoru's skill be in the same vein? But I tilt my head. What does that mean? I don't think that's particularly bad or anything. The items still drop normally, right? The items aren't affected, but the problem stems from the experience skill bonus. Ah! I finally realized it. By killing monsters, you get the necessary experience points to level up. If someone in the party defeats one, all members get experience points, but only the one who kills it gets more experience than the others. That is the so-called kill bonus, and the amount of experience you gain is thrice the amount than that of the parties. That's why combat jobs have a higher level even within the same party. But that means... So it's a skill that allows you to monopolize the kill bonus in a party? Yes. Ahaha. What a horrible skill, right? It comes to no surprise, but it's hard for party members to raise their skills when I'm around. Whether you're a swordsman or a mage, you gain just as much as a support. That's bound to happen if that were the case. I then carefully ask a question that's been on my mind. Then your level is? It is as you imagine. It's the culmination of the experience points in the parties I've been in that have allowed me to reach this far. Kokoru says with a bitter smile. Even though I have such a skill, I'm still a priest, so I've been to parties before. Parties are always looking for a healer. Back when I was just starting out, with each adventure my level rapidly rose. I could quickly overtake the levels of the other party members. Well, when that happens I get kicked out soon enough though. As it kept happening, before long, I started to get called in as a helper for boss battles as high-level healers are scarce. A boss kill bonus is an amazing thing. It would normally be difficult to level up past a certain point, but it isn't at all in my case. By the time I noticed, it was already such a number. It's really embarrassing. It was the others who were giving it their best after all. While looking down, Kokori vocalized her guilt. I then begin to talk, unsure of what to say. So that's what it was. No, I understand though. I've been an annoyance to my party members in the past too. But if you look for one, there's bound to be a party that would accept you, right? High-level priests are a rare sight, and you also possess a lot of skills. If they wanted to level, they could do it without a priest anyhow. You're in an infinitely better situation than I am. But Kokoru replied with no power in it and downcast eyes. Ahaha, thanks for the encouragement. But that wouldn't work. It's not the issue. Even if they try their best to defeat a monster, most of the experience points go to me who does nothing in the backline. Anyone would get angry at that, surely? That's why. Even if I get invited to a party, I'll be shafted in a heartbeat again if things stay like this. Kokoru's words left me unable to say anything. If someone told me that a minus skill is a matter of emotions, then I would have to say they're probably right. Even I was fed up about having low drop rates mere moments ago. And also, there's a distinct disadvantage to the usurper of severed heads. With this skill, if the person who kills has experience buff or drop rate increase and the like, then they won't be applied. Normally they would be extremely useful skills, but because of me. I froze as I was thinking of words of consolation. Drop rate increase wouldn't be applied? Then maybe. Truth be told, I came here to this dungeon to defeat the boss. Sir Alvin, do you know the rumors about this place? They say that the boss of this dungeon drops an item that could remove skills. I want it so much. If I can erase my skill, then I could become an ordinary adventurer. I won't become a nuisance to anyone, and I wouldn't get kicked out of a party. If it was just a normal adventurer. That's why. This might be an imprudent request, but, Sir Alvin, could I ask you to defeat the boss with me? I was going to do it alone, but, as expected, it would be tough going in solo as a priest. Even if I'm like this, I'm level 80 and I'm confident in my skills as an adventurer. Sir Alvin, you seem to be high level too, so I think that we can surely beat a small dungeon if we work together. Of course, it's okay for you to not party with me in order for you to not be robbed of experience. As for the rewards, I only need that one single item, so everything else will be given to you. So please, Kokoru-san. Pie? Why yes? I unconsciously grab her shoulders. To be honest, nothing really registered from her story. While ignoring everything so far, I then say, will you party up with me? Chapter 7. Is this really okay? Kokoru, who was following behind me, asks worriedly. I managed to ask the reluctant Kokoru to party with me. Now, we were leaving the save point and looking for a monster. She then continues on. I've said it before, but you won't be able to get the kill bonus if you're in a party with me. The skill activates whenever a monster is killed. It's okay with me. I looked back to answer Kokoru. I don't mind the experience points. I just want to test something out, so can you come along with me for now? I don't mind, but, of course, you can back out if you really don't want to. It's not that I don't want to. Good then. My level's a lot lower than yours, but I'll take the place of Vanguard. Okay. I'll take care of the rear. Do you need any support from buffs? I have an MP to spare. No need. The middle levels are still low for it. I can do fine without it. I was a bit touched, as I answered back. It's nice to have a party after all. There's a difference in having a sense of security whether there's a companion you can rely on or not. The times I fell into going solo every time I was kicked out of a party weighed on my mind. At that moment, I hear Kokoru raise her voice behind me. I then focus my attention to the enemy that has appeared ahead. It was a yellow, round, amorphous body. In other words, a paralysis slime that spits out a debilitating poison. I take a huge step forward and then stop. The slime pounced forward as I predicted, so I swung my sword to match it. The sword effortlessly slashes through the nucleus, its weak point. The slime's HP is reduced to 0 in one slash, and its body disperses along with it. Wow! You're amazing! Kokoru shouted from behind me. The slime is often thought of as a small fry, but there's a secret trick to hitting its weak point. I use the method of making it do a huge forward leap a lot. That way, it makes the slime unable to dodge and makes its body stretch longer, which in turn, lessens the protection on its nucleus. It's one of the methods I devised to allow my party to get stronger. But that doesn't matter right now. I dumbfoundedly look at the items and coins the slime left behind after it disappeared. Slimes drop quite a lot of money, don't you think so too? It's a paralyzed slime core. How lucky. No. It's not for sure yet. Eh? What is? Kokoru followed behind me, confused, as I walked forward shaking my head. Even that can drop once in a while. It isn't conclusive. The next thing we encountered was a yellow goblin. It was alone, so I slid down to cover the distance and stab its neck before it could raise its shield. Oh, it's a yellow goblin antidote. So it dropped such a thing. It seems to have the same effects as a paralysis curing potion, but this is the first time I've seen it. How rare? And no. Not yet. One more time. Sir Alvin? What's wrong? The next thing we encountered was an elect spider. It would be troublesome if we allowed it to scatter its numbing webs, so I take it down quickly. The small spider-shaped monster had dropped more items than the previous ones. There's a lightning orb. So it even drops from elect spider's hut. Kokoru said in surprise. How lucky. Could it be you have high luck when it comes to drops? Was my drop luck that good? Eh? I didn't know. I've rarely been blessed with an item drop so. Miss Kokoru. I unconsciously drew closer to Kokoru. Hi. Why yes? Can you party with me? Aren't we already one right now? Oh yeah. Then. Please. Always be together with me from now on. I don't have the confidence to keep on living without you. What are you talking about, Sir Alvin? Kokoru steps back and dodges eye contact. We just got to know each other yet. It doesn't matter. You're the one that allowed all of this to happen after all. Heavily localized. A certain way to say confess something pun. Yes. I can say that with certainty. You and I are a perfect match. This meeting must have been the work of fate. Why you are going to go that far as to say that? Of course. I nod. As for Kokoru, however, she fidgets around and doesn't seem to like the idea. But I don't know you well enough, Sir Alvin. Ah. I see. That's right, I forgot to say something important. I actually have a minus skill too. Is that so? Yeah? It's called drop rate reduction, special class. Unlike yours, it's not that rare of a skill. It is rare. It's true that drop rate reduction type skills are a common minus skill, but it's limited to small or medium class. I've never heard of special. How did you become an adventurer? Well, that's a story to tell. I tell the story of my hardships till now. Even though I just got recently kicked out of a party. Kokoru listened on with a seemingly pained, sympathetic expression. And that's it. I'm diving alone in a dungeon like this for the same reason as you. I get it now. So Sir Alvin too. Hee. It looks like we've both had a hard time. Hey, can't argue with that. But... Kokoru tilts her head. Even if you have such a skill, didn't the items drop normally? Yeah? That's right. If I'm alone, often, they wouldn't drop items let alone coins. When the items dropped earlier, it was all thanks to you, Miss Kokoru. Mine? Your skill, the usurper of severed heads, considers any monster killed by a party member to be accredited to you. Isn't that so? Yes. So that means, with all the kill bonuses being attributed to you, the other party members' skills such as XP increase and drop rate increase, skills that have an effect once the monster is killed, will no longer be activated. Yes. then that means. Yeah? It seems to be so. I continue, it will no longer be activated. That is to say, my skill drop rate reduction, special class 2. As long as I'm in a party with you, then I can be a normal swordsman, regardless of my minus skill. Chapter 8. Kokoru blinked her eyes when she heard that. I see. Now that you say it, that is true. Eh? Then the thing you were saying about being together forever was. Yes. I want us to keep partying even after we leave this dungeon. Why? Nothing tilde. Kokoru then turned away. I got a bit impatient, so I guess I caused her to get angry, but she eventually turned back to face me with a small smile. But I'm happy hearing that. Even with a skill like mine, I managed to end up being useful. Yes, that's why. But I don't think it's a good idea. Kokoru said with a feeble smile. Before I can say anything else, she continues. Didn't I already tell you? You won't get any kill bonuses whatsoever when you're in a party with me. Like with the battle just now. The amount of XP received is the same as any party member. That's how it will always be with me, you know. Is that okay with you? I don't mind. I bow my head with intent. I hadn't mentioned it, but my level is already 43. It might be low compared to yours, but it's plenty high for your average swordsman. It's going to be hard to level up any more than this, and there's a limit to what I can achieve solo. More than experience, what I want is a companion. People I can fight with, comrades in the same party. But even then, it won't be a good thing. Even if you form a party with me. There's only two of us, a priest and a swordsman. The number of dungeons we can tackle is sorely limited. There's no doubt no other members will be added. I'll take away their experience after all. I'm sure a swordsman of your caliber can enter a better parry. The limited number of dungeons I can go to is infinitely better than soloing. I might be able to join a different party if I tried, but I'm tired of getting kicked out. You would understand that, right? Also, I'm sure that other members will come to us too. It's got a high-level vanguard and support gathered together after all. A promising party, don't you think so? But my skill is. If anybody complains about experience, then you can be sure I'll kick them out. I will be on your side. You can count on that. I mean, with you, I wouldn't even get half a decent drop anyhow. So, please. You woo. Kokoru casts her eyes downwards and does a brief hum. Of course, even I stopped speaking after that. The conversation has stopped, but I don't know what else to say. Thinking back, I don't have a good track record at socializing. Knowing there's a looming chance of getting kicked out of the party because of a minus skill causes you to avoid getting close to people. In fact, it causes one to be needlessly obsequious. I don't even know how to talk to a girl. Perhaps Kokoru isn't fond of the idea because it's me. I have been just told recently to fix my personality. Nonetheless, it's not something I can give up with. Is that so? Okay then. If it's a problem with my personality, then I'll try to fix it. Not at all. You even saved me earlier too. When she said so, Kokoru fell silent again. For now, there's no point in pushing her. With an awkward smile, I decide to send her a life float to cling on to. Well, you don't need to force yourself to decide this instant. For now, let's just stay in the same party while diving in this dungeon, okay? We'll deal on what to do after that. Okay. Then. It might be just for a short time, but glad to be working with you, Sir Alvin. Same, I nod. That should do it for now. Next up is to give it my all acting as a swordsman and show her my good side. It's the same thing whenever I join a new party. I will do my best to be useful. Okay. For now, we should. Before I could finish my sentence to move on ahead, I spotted a glowing object in the nook of a passageway. Ah, it's a treasure chest, Sir Alvin. Following my line of sight, Kokoru seems to have seen the same treasure chest too. I follow behind her as she runs towards it. It's not a mimic, is it? Kokoru stops in front of the treasure chest and groans. You can sometimes find good old-fashioned treasure boxes in dungeons. Things such as coins or items could be found inside. There aren't many things of value, but you can sometimes pick up rare items that monsters don't drop. On the other hand, however, there are times when it's locked or a chance that it could be a mimic in disguise. I'll open it. Stand back, I say, as I step forward. At this level of the dungeon, mimics aren't something to be too weary of. And what's more, I have a healer behind me. If I had been solo, I might have hesitated a bit, but there's no reason to worry now. I put my hand on the cover of the treasure chest and opened it up. Fortunately, it wasn't locked. How is it? It isn't a mimic, but it doesn't seem good either, I say, as I peer into the treasure chest. There are no items. There are a lot of coins, though. The coins you can pick up in the dungeon are not really worth much. They are used as raw materials for minting official currency so they can be sold at a set price, but even if you have a gunny sack's worth of it, they won't be worth much. But it's good to pick up whatever we can. I'll carry the items and coins. There might be a level difference between us, but I'm certain to have a higher carrying limit. Once we get out, we can split it evenly then. Ah, okay. Please then. I open the status window and manipulate it to put the coins in storage. My storage was already filled with some items and coins, but there was still quite a bit of room. There might just come a day where it might be filled with drops. My carrying capacity had uselessly gone up together with my level, but a chance for it to be useful has come. I smirk as I store away the coins. Unexpectedly, I found something other than the coins that were buried in the corner of the treasure chest. Ah, if it isn't parchment paper, Kokoru said as she came up next to me, peering into the treasure box. In silence, I pick up the curled parchment. You can sometimes find a blank parchment as an item, but this was more of a bundle than anything. This is probably... I unfurl it. Sure enough, there were letters written on it. Kokoru then says, it seems to be a text. Yeah, flavor text can sometimes be found in this form. I spread out the parchment so Kokoru can also see as I read through the contents. There will cause the user to lose a talent. This is. It immediately occurred to me. This was the rumored boss drop. A description of the skill-removing item. The other adventurers who had been exploring here had probably found the same text. At the same time I remember it. I remember that I came to this dungeon in order to find this exact item. Sir Alvin, Kokoru talked, probably thinking the same thing. The priestess then continues talking with a smile. If we can defeat the boss and get this item, then you can use it, Sir Alvin. Eh? I was taken aback as Kokoru said that to me. I owe you a debt of gratitude. And see, You would be the one that's troubled if my skills are the one to be erased, but if your skills are the ones to be erased, it won't really bother me. If something happens and you want to join another party, thinking about it, it's definitely better. Kokoru smiles softly. My mouth is closed, I take a moment to think of what to say and then, do you think you're going to be abandoned again? Do you think I'm going to get fed up with your minus skill and kick you out of the party one day? Are you testing me on what I'll do by saying you'll give up the item? After I say so, Kokoru hanged her head down. I sigh in reflex. You know. No. It's fine. I understand how you feel. I've been kicked out of parties myself. Even the people I got along with replaced me out of the blue once they found a substitute. It's hard to tell someone to not demean themselves. I've told you. I have a minus skill too. I will never do anything like betray someone in the same situation as me. Yeah? And also, if it's the item we're talking about, then things would probably be fine. I then explained to Kokoru, who was looking at me in curiosity. Boss drops are rarely consumable. In other words, it shouldn't be one-time use. It said one of your talents so one person can't use it multiple times, but there is a good chance it can be used by two people. So that means, yeah? Maybe we can both get rid of our minus skill. Kokoru's face brightens up. It was the best expression I've seen her have so far. Then let's do it. Let's take down the boss together, Sir Alvin. Yeah, let's do our best. I put the parchment away in storage. We both turned our backs on the treasure chest and walked further into the depths of the dungeon. Chapter 9. I swing down my sword. Its level must have been low, or at the very least, the last tentacle plant was only on that level as its body came apart into 4 pieces easily. Phew. After the annihilation of the swarm, I took a breath there. Numerous drops littered the dungeon. We had already reached the 24th layer. Even if it was only the middling layers, the closer we got, the stronger the monsters become. An intermediate level adventurer, for example, would need to organize a party as an essential requirement. Even I would need to prepare well in advance if I were to tackle it on solo. Be that as it may, my levels are still enough for it, and I'm not alone right now. I turned around and called the priestess who was waiting at the rear guard. Kokoru, give me a hand in collecting the drops. I don't think I can handle this much alone. I'm on it. Kokoru runs to the dropped items, opens the status screen, and begins to store them away. The items dropped by the monster disappear by itself over time. Same with the monster's body. Once I put it into storage, or take it out in the dungeon, that doesn't happen, but due to that characteristic, a large number of drops often leads to it disappearing before being picked up. That's why even though I said I would haul it on my person earlier, I ended up having Kokoru help me out. Although the priest class has a hard time raising the maximum carrying capacity, it seems there's still plenty of space for her because of the super high level she has. What a rare companion I have here. I smirked as I collected the items and coins. I never thought the day would come when I would get so many drops. Just seeing the storage fill up conversely fills me with joy too. No, I should stop. I'm taking this luxury for granted. At least for now, it's only just a benefit of Kokoru's skills while she's still here with me. I shouldn't rest on my laurels. Looks like everything has been picked up. I look around the dungeon floor and then say it to Kokoru. We've walked quite a way off. We can rest, if you want. No need to worry. If it's okay with you, Sir Alvin, we can go on till the next safe point. Let's go ahead then. I gave a short reply and resumed walking. We were advancing in silence for some time when Kokoro suddenly called out to me from behind. Yeah? Is there something special about your sword? My sword? No. I must admit it packs quite a bit of power, but it's your normal everyday sword. It's not imbued with any special properties. Any swordsman worth his salt diving into the depths has one of these. I see. Then do you have any special abilities? Like one-shot death blow? And no, I possess nothing like that, and something like that probably doesn't exist. Why do you ask? But, Kokoro says in a lowered voice, the monsters slashed by Sir Alvin were killed in a single strike. Even a level 43 swordsman would usually find it impossible to one-shot monsters on the 24th layer. That's why it's on my mind. Ah, that's for sure. I go on to explain, there are a few reasons. While I don't have a skill like one-shot death blow, I have parameter raising skills. Thanks to that, my actual stats are above the level I'm actually at. Plus there's your buff. Kokoro has been supplementing me with buffs right around the 20th level. With added stuff like damage reduction, strength buffs, and poison resist buffs, I was able to plow through easily. I had wondered if her MP was still good to go, but it seems she has no problems at all. That's a level 80 priestess for you. But it looks like Kokoro still wasn't convinced with that. I still don't think you can hit them in one blow though. Not at all. With attack power like this, a middling level monster can be taken down in a single hit as long as you hit the weak points. Have you been hitting the weak points of every monster all the while? Of course, I couldn't do it for all of them, but the ones that only took a single blow were. Really? What kind of prowess do you need to have to achieve that? Kokoro says in surprise. I've participated in many high-level parties, but I've never seen a swordsman like you, Sir Alvin. Likewise, with your skill, but doesn't that mean you memorized the weaknesses of the monsters, right? It's very well unlikely if you don't have the fighting experience. Experience is a given. Yes. But I've read the materials in the guild's archives and have been persistently listening and studying off of experienced adventurers, I say with a wry smile. It's in part of dragging everyone down with the drops. I had to play an active role even if it was only a little bit. I was grasping at straws anyhow, as I would have no place in a party if I was a liability on top of having negative skills. There was still no place for me when all is said and done, even if I wasn't a liability though. Sir Alvin. But that's not all, you know. I couldn't do this on a solo run. It's also because of you being here. Me? Yeah? It's precisely because there is someone supporting me from the back line that I could place a somewhat dangerous bet. It's a hurdle aiming at the weak spot. And if I failed to do so, there's possible retaliation. While I am confident in my skills, I refrain from doing so as much as possible when I'm solo. While it's less efficient to do so, it's unavoidable. Having a companion, however, allows you to not have to worry about such things. Kokoro, who heard my explanation, laughs bashfully. There's also another thing. To be honest, I want to show you a good time too. I can't have others thinking I'm not a good vanguard. Especially to a companion I've just met. I can't have the great level 80 priestess abandon me now, can I? So that's what you meant. What's wrong? Nothing at all, Kokoru says so as she pouts behind me. Her mood sometimes sours like this, but I'm not sure why. HNN? Just then, a monster with heavy steps echoed loudly ahead as I look up at the monster that appeared. It was a body made of large green stone, an emerald golem that's resistant to wind and physical attacks. Normally, it would be a nasty monster to deal with, but I was relieved. It came at a good time. I might dodge what made her angry. I quickly closed in the distance and dealt my first blow on the right leg. Thanks to the use of my swordsmanship skills, Zantetsu the golem was greatly staggered. But I probably didn't deal that much damage. It seems the golem's level is high. This could take some time. I calmly take on the golem's counterpunch with my raised sword. An intense sound wailed out, but I wasn't shaken. Its offensive power doesn't seem to be all that much. The next step then is to... Sir Alvin. Kokoru's voice sounded out from behind me. Immediately afterwards, I felt as if light was passing through my body. Then words appeared for a moment in the corner of my vision. It's an indication that a buff has been applied. Whoo! I shout out in excitement. With this buff, it would be a different story. At the same time, the golem pulled its arms back. I kicked the ground jumping, thrusting the tip of my sword into its bulky green-colored chest. The sword ignores its physical resistance and stabs deep into it, reaching the golem's core deep inside. Its remaining HP was cut off with a single blow. The emerald golem disperses in an array along with it. As its name implies, a number of emerald ores drop mixed in with coins. I look back at the priestess. Nice. So you're able to cast a buff like that too. Although, doesn't a buff that completely disables resistances cost a lot of MP? Are you okay? Yep, absolutely. Amazing. You're very reliable. But you have a fast reaction too. That buff has a short duration, so I expected to reapply it several times, but you're impressive. After that exchange, we collected the coins and emerald ore. The ore catches for a hefty sum, so it's a pretty good drop. Just as we finished getting the items, Kokoru spoke up. All things aside though, this is a pretty messed up dungeon. Don't you think the monsters that appear have no rhyme or reason? What happened to the fire attribute and paralyzing poison monsters from the upper floors? Even this floor should have plant-type monsters like mandrakes or tentacle plants, but once you think of that, something like an emerald golem came out. You have a point. From what's been seen so far, it's a rare sight having a nonsensical unknown theme. Nonsensical, huh? You could make a case for that, but I also feel that it isn't. Depending on the level, there was a specific monster that's inclined to appear at an extent. So I have a feeling that there might be a rule that governs this place. But I don't know just yet. Putting aside that mystery for now, we head on. Chapter 10. It was only there after a short walk before the safe point came to view. Ah, look at that, Sir Alvin. I give a relieved smile to Kokoru as she points it out. Good. Looks like he'd got it right. Among adventures, maps around areas this deep are up for trade. Adventurers who have dived this deep transcribe the information on a map and sold on the market. Information is important. Every adventurer understands that. Since getting lost in a dungeon means death, the demand for maps is high. There are even parties that specialize in mapping, as that alone is enough to make a living out of. It's just that the maps in circulation are not always correct. There could be mistakes in copying, or shoddy ones that depict places they've never been to are not uncommon. That's why adventurers are usually relieved when they reach the safe points. When we were about to head there and rest, I heard a distant and faint noise. I'm hungry. With this we can finally. Sorry, I need you to come with. Eh? What is it? I start to run and Kokoru follows suit. The sound grows louder and louder. The sound of monsters and what seems like an explosion. There's no mistake, it's the sound of battle. If it was just the sound of battle, then there wouldn't be any problems, but I feel like it's not normal. I rushed towards the sounds while bearing that hunch. And then there it was. A narrow road with a dead end was ahead. There, numerous emerald golems had gathered. The golems look like they are pushing forward to the dead end of the narrow path. Occasionally from beyond there, blocked by the numerous monsters, flew magical flames scorching the countless golems one by one. At the dead end, there should be adventurers. But they might be small in number from the looks of things. At the very least, I don't think they can handle the huge amount of emerald golems. I draw my sword. Buff me Kokoru. Oh, on it. As soon as I run out, Kokoru smoothly starts a chant. It's fast, accurate, and easy to recognize. Exemplary spellcasting. By the time I close and to stab into the golem's core from his back shoulder, the Phi's penetration buff has already been cast. Along with the accompanying particle effects, one of the emerald golems dissipate. Several of the golems turn their attention towards me. With that, I shout out, "Oh yeah. Are you still alive over there? We'll somehow take care of it, so hang tight." I hear a voice from the end of the pathway, but I couldn't make out their words over the sound of the roaring magical explosions and the massive golem's heavy thuds. But I'm glad that they seem to be holding on. I parry the golem's fist that came from the left. Continuing on the trend, I stab the core of the golem on the right to defeat it. Passing under the particle effects, I slash the legs of the golem ahead of me, leaping upwards to use its back as a foothold after it has fallen after a certain amount of damage. The neck of the golem that was trying to pass through the corner of the aisle, preventing the assault on Kokoru at the rear guard by causing it to be knocked back. It might have been thanks to the buff, but I was glad I'm in somewhat of a good shape. Somehow, the magic released from the narrow pathway suddenly increased as well, causing the number of golems to visibly decrease. And finally, the last one dissipated. At the center of the pathway, where the emerald ore and the coins were scattered, I sheathe my sword, then first look back on my treasured party member. Good work. We managed. Your buffs grant more than I expected. That's. Ahaha. Removing my sights from Kokoru, who puzzlingly smiled in embarrassment, I turned to the adventurer girl who was ahead. Black robes and a staff. Looking at her attire, she looks to be a mage. Are you hurt? Alone, huh? Well, I'm just glad you're alive. The magician girl who heard it, had an embarrassed look and replied somewhat troubled. I'll apologize to you for now. Sorry. Pater 11. A trap. We were a little ways back from earlier, at the safe point. I reflexively ask back at her statement. Yeah? The magician sat on the ground with her cane and hat on her knees and nodded with a smirk. The pathway there is narrower than it should be. That's why a monster as big as a golem can get stuck there. Emerald golems have no long-range attacks, so if you are a backline class like a mage or archer, you can trap and kill them one-sidedly. So that was what the so-called trap she was talking about. A method of taking advantage of the terrain to hunt them without contest from places where the monster's attacks can't reach. It's a convenient method that can be used for collecting drops and levels, but the places where you can actually do it are in no ways numerous. In fact, the most popular places will have you line up for it. Since the entrapment points are readily available, for use of high and low levels, I didn't think I would find an adventurer doing it in the middle of nowhere like here. Then the golem was something you were pulling in there? Yes. While burning the plant-type monsters, there were a lot of extra monsters to deal with, so efficiency was low. So I apologize for my unnecessary actions. I honestly apologize. Even though I was ignorant of it, it was a breach of conduct ruining someone's hunt. But the girl shakes her head. It's fine. There wasn't any information about this out there, so it was confusing. Don't mind me. Please, get your share of the drops as well. But there's nothing to worry about. You would end up hesitating to help someone if the next time it happens if I peg you for it, right? If you were too late to save someone, then I wouldn't feel good about it either. You did a good thing. It's in everyone's best interest to keep it that way. Understand? Why, yeah. If she was going that far as to say that, then I would have no choice but to retract my statements. Kosuzu comes up to me and says in a whisper, it's nice that she's a good person, yeah, rather, she's a pretty rational thinker. She had black robes and a cane. Her large hat is taken off now, exposing her lightly braided blonde hair. She looks like a mage in every which way, but that was unexpected. If anything, the image I have of mages I've met fit the bill of emotional people. Once I looked at her again, she stared at me with half-closed eyes. Let me guess, for a mage she's quite reasonable, am I right? And no, I wouldn't go that far. That's what one would get with a little bit of thinking. That's a completely prejudiced view. If one's personality is determined based on one's class, then it wouldn't be strange if a mage is logical. Unlike an axe or sword that never disappears no matter how much you swing it around, being a mage requires one to choose your magic while watching your dwindling MP and choosing the right attribute for your opponent. Why, you got me there. My prejudices aside, I'm sure that the girl in front of me is a logical thinker. That being said, I open my mouth to ask her something I've been wondering about. But you. It's Melina. Sorry, I haven't told you my name yet, come to think of it. I'm Elvin, a swordsman, and she's Kosuzu, a priestess. We met here and put together a temporary party. Pleasure to meet you. I collect myself, and ask the girl who called herself Melina. Ms. Melina, you said earlier that there was no information on the entrapment location, but are you the one who discovered it? Yeah, that's right. That's amazing. I'm deeply impressed. Finding a place like that requires a certain kind of astuteness, as well as knowledge of terrain and monsters. That kind of keenness, which was different from the level and skills seen on your status, is also important for an adventurer. Are you a cartographer perhaps? Cartographer? Nah. I just found that place by chance. I'm spelunking this dungeon for my own objective. Objective? Hearing that, I timidly ask, are you here to beat the boss of this dungeon? No way. Melina laughs at herself and replies. Even in a small dungeon like this, no way I'm soloing that boss as a mage. I am raising my level accordingly, but I need a party. So that's it. Mages aren't a class suited for soloing. Was I just overthinking things? But Melina continued talking. But I'm going to conquer this place someday. You see, I've been mapping this dungeon as I've been diving here many times now, moving down little by little. On the day of my actual raid on the boss, I want to have already known the structure of this dungeon so that I can get to the boss lair with as little wear and tear as possible. The reason I was hunting down the emerald golems was just simply for making money. While it's not an efficient way to go about it, I can't get other people to come with and I can make money without them anyway. It costs a pretty penny to hire an adventurer. For now, I ask the obvious question. I get where you are coming from, but, well, can't you just recruit party members like normal? You're competent from what I can see, so I'm sure you'll have a high enough level of adventurer coming at your doorstep. You don't have to hire them for money. PFFT. Not a chance. Melina laughs, deriding herself again. I'm not the kind of person who should put together a party. I'll pay the premium to hire temporary help for the boss fight. It's better to go about to that extent. Dungeons are a dangerous place after all. Have you two heard the rumors of this place? The boss here drops an item that can remove a skill. It's info based on numerous flavor texts, gathered from dives, so it must be the truth. I have a need for that item. Melina continues on because I have a minus skill, and with that, my gut feeling came true. Chapter 12. Blessing of the Jealous God. It was a skill name I've never heard of. It was probably as rare of a skill as Kosuzu. Melina then talks in a tired voice. Just because I have this skill, I can't form a party with anyone. A solo mage, what a joke. My other 7 skills supplement the mage class, so I chose it, but now I'm just thinking if I should have let my skills rot and chosen a solo-friendly job. What kind of minus skill do you have? Kokoro, who was listening quietly the whole time, asked as she leaned forward a bit. Melina turns to the priestess, who was about the same age as her, and begins to explain, albeit a bit distracted. First off, it's a 10% all parameter increase for yourself and allies in the same party. 10%? I shout in surprise. That's too good to be true. Plus, it affects every stat. While skills that increase the stats of other members of the party do exist, they are few and far between. Although, a 10% increase to all stats is a skill I've never heard of. For comparison, a 5% increase in strength alone is plentiful enough. How is that a minus? Of course, that's not the only effect. If a party member, including myself, kills a monster, every parameter they have would be reduced by 3%. By the way, it's treated as a debuff and stacks for every kill. I made a befuddled voice this time. As a debuff, it has a lesser effect than stacking. So then, yeah, by the time you kill 3, the positives you get have almost disappeared. It's a minus from the 4th onwards. On average, the number of monsters you kill on one adventure is a dozen or more. Depending on the dungeon or party objective, it's not uncommon to reach upwards of 100. If that's so, the benefit of the skill quickly disappears and, in no time at all, your status would be less than the original number. No, on the contrary. Impossible. Then that means if a person defeats around 40 of them, then their stats would be reduced to 0, right? What can you do if it reaches that point? No, it doesn't end up to 0 to begin with. The 3% affects the current value, so technically, the lower the parameter, the lower the decrease. So even if you kill 40 of them, it would be more or less at 70% less of the original value. I see. It's a debuff too, so it would wear off over time, yeah. So it might not be that terrible of a skill. Melina nods affirmatively. The parameter reduction itself isn't so much of a problem actually. That's why it's rare for your status to drop low enough to interfere with combat. So then you can. At the end of the day though, the skill is a bane to any party. Melina continues to us who kept silent. The skill has a third effect. The kill bonus is forfeit for the one who kills it. Forfeit. So the experience just vanishes? Not exactly. The forfeited amount is split evenly to the other party members. In a way, it's way worse than having to forfeit it. Can you take a guess on what happens when combined with the second effect? No party with me in it would actively kill the monsters. To be expected I guess, between the kill bonus and stat decrease, why would they? That's a very dangerous thing. The others not dealing the final blow ending up on repeat, that's a one-way ticket to an accident. I'm just the rear guard. It doesn't matter if I'm prepared to have reduced stats no matter the number of kills. I can't assist the vanguards with that. I've experienced the collapse of parties many times over. There were times it reached a point where I'm kicked out, others where I left on my own due to the bad atmosphere of the members. That's the kind of skill it is. Listening to her story, I felt something stick in the back of my mind. Kill bonus distributed to the other party members? Then just maybe. You get what I'm saying here? I'm not the type of person who should form parties. Both me and my party members would suffer through danger. It's a skill that doesn't activate unless you have a party, so until I defeat the boss, I'm going to continue on solo. Ms. Melina. Kokoru suddenly greatly leans towards Melina. To the mage girl who had darted eyes, the priestess completely ignores the flow of the conversation and tells her, "Won't you party with us?" Chapter 13. Were you even listening to me? I listened loud and clear. Even so, please join a party with us. You know. I've already told you, right? I'm not a person who should be in a party. If the swordsman is hesitant to kill because of my trait, you would be in danger too, you know. I wouldn't want my vanguard to become useless either. That doesn't. No. Why don't we just try it for now? Won't you try and form a party with us at least for a while? Just for now, as a test run. Okay then, I guess. Only for a while though. She went along with it. The mage Melina partied with us. I looked at the status changes before and after registration and I was wholly surprised to see all the stats be raised by 10%. If that was all there is to it, then it's a very powerful skill. Sadly, things weren't that convenient. With that out of the way, we exit the save point and walk around, searching monsters. So, what are we gonna do now? To Melina's question, Kokoru restlessly looks all around as she answers. I want to try defeating a monster with this party. Anyone can kill it, so I'll have to ask you to help too, Sir Alvin. Yeah, on it. I can take a guess as to what Kokoru is planning. So I meekly nod. Did you want to raise your level? With my skill, the priest can also get the kill bonus as well. But, even with a party of 3, efficiency would be cut in half. It would be better if you dive into a slightly deeper level and kill it yourself with some assistance though. No, that's not my intention. Kokoru shakes her head. I don't need the levels. And I might not be able to get the kill bonus. While saying so, a monster appears on our pathway. A plant-type monster that controls its vines like tentacles with a flower for a head. Fine then. Let me handle it. Melina stopped me as I was about to go after it. Then began to chant. It was a faster, smoother chant than Kosuzu. Because their role of a priest is different, so it's not simple to make a one-to-one comparison, but as casters of the rearguard, they appear to have the same abilities. With the chant done, a fireball was conjured up from the staff she was carrying and it flew away. It hits the tentacle plant, and immediately causes its body to burst out. In one blow? Impressive. That's what happens when you strike it with its weak attribute. And even without that, I'm level 38. I see. While in terms of levels, I'm not even scratching near the range of Kosuzu's levels, but I could still imagine that a mage, someone who isn't suited to soloing, having a fairly rough time reaching that level. Kosuzu calls out from behind. How many attributes can you use? I mainly use 5 attributes. I've memorized all the spells that a level 38 mage can cast and a few other useful things, I guess. Whoa, that many? Kosuzu said in surprise. Is that a good thing? Why yes. Mages have a wider array of spells to use compared to priests. To the point that not that much can be remembered. So it's normally narrowed down the attributes to be used as the level increases based on the casting medium, the skills that are possessed, and personal likes and dislikes. So, oh yeah, disregarding his much lower level, the mage who kicked me out as the party leader had only been using 3 attributes. With a bitter smile, Melina starts talking. Whether it could be seen as a boon or not, I have skills that enhance 5 of the attributes. I didn't want to make the skills go to waste, so I frantically memorized the spells. And other than that, it would be best for a mage to go about exploiting a monster's weakness to have a shot at soloing. She went about it jokingly, but she must have been downplaying how hard it was. Magic-based classes like priests and mages use spells that are different set of things from skills, in a sense that the number of techniques you can use increases as your level rises. It's similar to sword and spear skills that vanguards tend to have. The crucial difference, however, is that you won't be able to use magic off the bat like skills are. You need to learn the spells on your own. The incantation itself has no meaning. It's just no more than a series of sounds. Memorizing, pronunciation, and chanting them as fast as possible is a difficult thing to do without repeated practice. While looking at magic-based classes may look easy and have barely any movement while being protected by vanguards, I knew that in practice, it's a difficult class. And in Melina's case, 5 attributes were under her belt. More importantly, Kosuzu suddenly changed gears. Ms. Melina, is your skills debuff this? The jealous god's curse. Yeah, that's right. Did you see the status? It has the melted heart icon to signify it. My VIT, STR and the like should have been reduced by 3% too. You can check simple status information like the levels and skills of party members, status condition through buffs and debuffs, and remaining HP from your own status window. It's one of the advantages of forming a party. Melina might have thought that Kosuzu looked at that, but it was probably not the case. After a few seconds, Melina tilts her head in puzzlement. Huh? It looks like it didn't grant the effect. Let's go for another battle just in case. It should make it clear then. Kokoru announced, in a voice that seemed like she was shaking in excitement. Chapter 14. The next enemy that appeared was of the same type that was downed earlier, an emerald golem. I'll join in this time. I can't just leave all the work to the rear guard alone. I ran towards the golem. It raised its massive arms, preparing to swing down. But just before it could, an explosion occurs around its neck. Exclamation mark. Maybe the damage has exceeded a certain amount, as the golem suffers a huge knockback. I immediately realized what it was, Melina's support fire. I quickly take advantage of the opportunity and deliver a follow-up strike at the golem's neck. Then there was another flash of light. With that, it seems its HP has been reduced to 0, as the emerald golem disintegrates. This time, there was no buff for Fi's pen, but this is how it would be like if there were two people at a high level working together. I look back at Melina and talk. Come to think of it, you can use explosion magic. Yeah, I guess. It doesn't belong to an attribute, but I thought it would be absolutely useful, so I studied it. She looks like she's slightly proud of it as she replies. I've been thinking of this earlier too, but you have pretty good movement yourself. Are you at a high level too? Something like that. Not nearly as high as the priestess behind me though. I then turn my sights to Kokoru. So how goes it, Kokoru? Kokoru was quivering as she was fixated on the status screen. Then she talks, as if overcome with emotion. Yes. There's no doubt about it. What the heck is wrong with you guys? Ms. Melina. Kokoru suddenly closes in on the mage. What? Please party with us. Like I keep saying, I won't party with you, so. I see. Then please stay with me forever. Ha. She blushes slightly, covering her mouth with her hands as she looks away. This is worrying. It's so sudden. We're also both women. I did the same thing as Sir Alvin. What is? What I'm saying is, I want for us to continue being in the same party from now on. So that's what you meant. I see. Cough. Melina clears her throat. Don't surprise me, geez. But, why? I've told you countless times. I am not a person who should be at a party. The fighters in the party will surely hesitate to kill. The rate of accidents will go up, and you and I will be put at risk too. No. There's nothing to worry about. What are you saying? I haven't told you this yet, but we actually possess minus skills too. Isn't that so, Sir Alvin? Yeah? Kokoru explains our circumstances and how we ended up here. Melina listened in astonishment. Level 80 you say? So far, there seemed to be a few adventurers who reached that level in the past, but this might be the first time for a priest. Was it because of your minus skill that allowed you to reach so far up? That's right. I think that participating in a lot of boss fights is a big part of it though. If you can monopolize all the kill bonuses, then that certainly might be it. Rather, aren't you level 43 yourself, Alvin? Yeah? I raised it by myself though. I'm solo, but if I didn't defeat a number of them, then I couldn't expect to get a drop. It was just a natural part of the process. You've become a good adventurer as well. Sigh. Our ages aren't that far apart, but you lot are at a much higher level than me. I was sure that I was the highest out of all of us. Kokoru aside, I'm not that different from you. Rather, raising your level that far as a solar mage is an impressive feat. Melina then replies, at any rate, I didn't think you were minus skill holders too and had the same aim as me. I for sure thought you were just normal adventurers forming a party. But come to think of it, you did say you met here. I can understand the swordsman, but I should have noticed that a priest going solo is unusual. Melina continues, I understand what's going on, but why would you form a party with me? If it's just wound licking, then I'll go as far as to at least accept your feeling. I have my own way of doing things. You misunderstood. We need you, Ms. Melina. What do you mean? Would you mind checking the status for me? Look at all of ours. It's fine, but... Melina opens the status screen as she was told. Then she immediately raises an eyebrow. The jealous god's curse isn't applied to me, I wonder why? It's too early for it to disappear with only this much time. Wait, this experience value. Is this the tentacle plant skill bonus? Why? Shaken, she manipulates the status screen. She might have been looking at Kokoru's status and mine. Alvin doesn't have a debuff icon either. That golem was just killed. Kokoru has 2 icons? This can't be. Ms. Melina. Can you repeat the negative effect of your blessing of the jealous god? The party member who kills a monster has all their stats decrease by 3%. They forfeit their kill bonus experience and distribute it evenly over the other members. And do you remember the effect of my usurper of severed heads? It activates when a party member kills a monster. And it's considered as your kill. That's how it is. Kokoru nods, and continues on to explain. I will take in all of the negative effects of your skill. That's why. I can return the experience points that I would have otherwise taken away, to all the ones who should have originally received it. Peta 15. Melina opens her eyes wide open when she hears that. That's true. But when you say return, isn't it wrong saying you are returning it to the original recipient? You're just distributing the experience points to all party members besides you. I for one think it's a lot better. I continue my statement as Melina turns to face me. The reward for killing it isn't for a single person. The emerald golem I defeated earlier would have been a great boon to you. The whole party is involved when defeating a monster. Yet even then, the only one who gets to keep the kill bonus is the one who defeats it. Isn't that more unreasonable? You've heard of kill stealing causing fights, right? That's true. Melina says alongside a sigh. On the opposite end, someone here can never get a kill bonus, but she will say she's fine with that, right, Kokoru? That's right. Priests aren't even meant to defeat monsters, plus, I'm already at level 80. I have no need for any more experience. Kokoru nods with energy. So please, Ms. Melina. Form a party with, but I'll have to decline. Melina cuts off Kokoru. Did you forget? My skill has another debuff effect. While it is true that you would take on all the debuffs that would have plagued the fighters little by little, it would put you in danger instead. It's no problem at all. I'm level 80, you know. Even if my stats are cut in half, I'd still be stronger than your average priest. A small debuff won't matter. And another thing. Please look at this. Saying so, Kokoru starts chanting. Eventually, Along with a faint light, the debuff icon disappears from Kokoru's status display. With her chest held high, the priestess then says, "What do you think? It's a magic that dispels effects. If the debuff ever gets too much, I can use this to make it go away. ... And so? Isn't that the kind of spell that also disables all the buffs that have been cast on you so far? It's a long chant too, so it's hard to use in an actual battle. What's wrong with that? If it's just finding an opening to use it, then it's quite simple. Please don't lump me in as the same level as the other priests." Me and Kokoru were surprised at Kokoru's statement. She delivered those strong words that would be seen as rare for her at a glance. "Even if I somehow can't, I will do my job as a healer without fail. When my wisp stat decreases, my healing efficiency per heal would go down along with it, but since it doesn't affect my MP, I can make up for it in numbers. I won't let the buffs run out too. I'll show you that I'll go above and beyond any other run-of-the-mill priests." Why? Melina remarks as if pressured. "Why go so far? I'll only be a disadvantage if I enter your party, won't I? You wouldn't get the kill bonus and you'll take in a debuff? So even then, why? I'm tired of being a nuisance to anyone, any longer." Kokoru replies, looking down. "Priests are a valuable addition, a support is essential, so even with this skill, I haven't had trouble joining parties. But no matter what party I join, I was a heal. Do you know what it feels like to get tired of sighing at opening your status after a battle is over? I felt crushing shame, being the only person in the party who gets to level up. And in the end, I'll lose my position in the party over a priest who is lower in level and ability than me. I accepted that as inevitable, but I was scared of thinking that sooner or later, Sir Alvin would cast those same eyes at me, the same person who went out of his way to talk to me. Compared to that, a debuff is paltry. Isn't this a way for me to control things somehow? I can't return the experience I've snatched away, but the status degradation would be all up to my ingenuity, so I'll manage it somehow or another. That would be by far easier. And also I feel like it's fate. Your skill's name is Blessing of the Jealous God, right? I was nothing but jealous of other priests. Why is that person not me? I've always asked myself. I have a higher level, my adventuring know-how is higher too. I've memorized numerous spells, yet. Why? Ahaha, I went and said something weird. But, it's still true that I need you, Ms. Melina. SP please. Form a party with me? Kokoru bows down. Melina's gaze goes every which way, as if lost on what to do. But, I can imagine what both sides are feeling. For now, it would be better if I send out a lifeline. Melina, can you stay in the party with us at least for now? Might as well keep advancing in the dungeon like this at least for a while longer, right? There's nothing wrong with staying at least for now. I mean, you'd be safer moving too than if you would go solo. If you plan on going further down, just think of it as using us. You can think of what to do after we leave. That might be a good proposition, but... Melina was lost in silence for a while, eventually a small smile forms and... Alrighty then. It may just be for a short time, but treat me well, to the both of you, gladly. Yeah? Same here. With a huge smile, Kokoru held Melina's hands, who looks like she has a worried expression. I guess this should be fine for now. I was about to open the status screen to check our current location, and then I suddenly noticed the writing on the wall of the dungeon. Walking up to it, I take a look. Seems like it's another one of the flavor texts. The strength of the swordsman wielding a giant sword will one day wane. The hawk eyes of the archer that sees through long will one day blur. But the comma is yet still sharpened. Hey, Alvin, before I knew it, Melina was next to me along with Kokoru. You plan to take the boss down, right? Yeah? What do you plan to do with that? The drop items. Melina tiptoed over her words. She's likely worried about whoever's would get to remove their minus skill. I reply. I think it's okay. Even though it's a small-scale dungeon, it's unlikely that a boss's drop is consumable. So you're saying it can be used multiple times? Yep. I have my qualms about that. Melina says quietly. Think about it too. If it was an item that could be used indefinitely, then it would mean that all the minus skill holders in the world would be able to erase their skills. You can remove it for a fee, and can earn money as much as you wish. That '(s). True, yeah? Being said out loud, I lose my confidence. Items that are obtained in dungeons are always balanced. Few of it are powerful weapons. Useful materials. That includes coming from rare monsters, sparsely drop. It's also said that there's no such thing as an item that brings the dead back to life, kill any monster with a single blow, or produce an infinite amount of wealth. Looking from that angle, I'm beginning to feel that my prediction was a mistake. But what you say is not unfounded. It's unlikely that the main drop of the boss erases only one skill. With that in mind, it may be consumable, but it would drop for the same amount of party members. If it's that, isn't it likely? Then that means. Yeah? All of us might be able to erase our minus skills. I don't quite follow, but that means it would go well, right? Let's go do our best then. With the addition of the mage Melina, the party turns to 3. With that, we started walking deeper into the dungeon. Chapter 16. Crap. I let one get past. No matter. Leave it to me. While holding back the ice golem's attack, I shout a heads up, prompting for Melina to respond in kind from the back line. A chant, following along with a flash of lightning magic. The aqua salamander that got loose got scattered into the dust. Melina's magic now bears her personal magic affinity enhancement, and Kokoru's magic affinity buff causes a battle with even the lower depth monsters to look like this. Our party has reached the 30th layer of the Cave of the Setting Sun. Below the 30th layer of the dungeon is called the Abyssal Layers. The monsters that appear here become increasingly stronger, and if you can consistently make it down here, then you can be considered part of the higher tracks of adventurers. Even if it were me, this is as far as you'll make it if you were to go solo. But now I'm part of a balanced 3-man party. Although the number of people is on the lower end, considering our average levels though, there's still way to go before we should worry about it. Phew, after finishing off the ice golem, I sheathe my sword and catch my breath. Good work. What's wrong? Well, maybe because I had a stern gaze in front of the scattered drop items, but Melina called out to me. I answer with what's on my mind. I was just thinking that this was a deeper dungeon than I thought it would be. Most, if not all small-scale dungeons have their boss rooms pinned in what would be the middling layers. I had for sure thought that it would have been the same as the other ones, but it subverted my expectations. If I was solo, I'd have already turned back by the time I reached this point. Challenging the abyssal layer bosses would be beyond reckless and tantamount to suicide. I have to agree. There's also no mid-boss, and I also thought that there would be a boss room on a far shallower level. Sir Alden. Kokoru, who was collecting the dropped items, directs me a worried look. If it seems to be too much of a burden on you, then might I suggest we go back a layer? If we end up going further, we have no guarantee that we'll find a safe point. It's as exactly as she says. I don't have a map of the further areas. It didn't seem to be available at the market anyhow, so I couldn't get my hands on one, and it led me to chart the dungeon as we progress through it now. She has a point though, not knowing the safe areas are a cause for concern. But I digress, and shook my head. You don't need to worry about me. Level-wise, it's a layer where I could still continue on solo. Let's go ahead. Are you sure? I do think that being alone vanguards is difficult, however. Just having both of you manning the backline is far and away good for me already. With both the supporting and firepower, I'm now better off than being by my lonesome. If that's how it is, then it's fine and all, but it isn't just Helven that you should be worried about, Kokoru. Aren't you overexerting yourself too? Me? I have yet to do a lot. I haven't even used heals, or status recovery spells all that much either, and the Jealous God's Curse isn't anything to worry about after 1 or 2 battles worth of it. Aren't you casting buffs on us? Although, since it is you we're talking about, so I guess you're probably still in tip-top shape. Reaching the lower depths, Kokoru has been casting buff more than ever before. Although, in addition to her level 80 status, she had the skills like MP increase, large and MP recovery speed increase, so her remaining MP makes it seem like it's completely untouched. But isn't that pretty nerve-wracking? Isn't it difficult to not run out after using so many different types of spells like that? Tilda. I'm used to it. It's only natural for a priest. Say, aren't Kokoru's buffs last strangely long? Is that also the effect of some skill? As I said so, Melina posed me a quizzical look. What are you talking about? Not really, I think it's the norm though. Isn't it fine? I'm a-okay. Come, let's quickly find that next safe point. Declaring so, Kokoru pushed me and Melina's backs. Our shotgun-constructed party of 3 went further in the 32nd layer. Chapter 17. All things considered, this dungeon is downright different from the others, don't ya think? I was storing away the drop item, Merman's Tear, a rare drop from a merman, a bipedal human-fish hybrid, when Melina murmured behind me. How so? I mean, the monsters that appear are wildly different depending on the layer, right? Just a bit higher ago, there were only plant-type monsters, yet now there's only ice and water-based ones appearing. You don't get to hear much about dungeons like this. I'd have to agree. Occasionally, it does happen. As you go down, monsters with dark attributes increase, and dungeons with a wide variety of properties aren't all that rare. Just that this place keeps changing too much and it has no known pattern or reasoning behind it, so to speak. Frankly, I don't know a dungeon that's anything like it. Having said that, it's not like it means that it doesn't have a gimmick to it. It's weird. Gimmicks are just rarer in certain dungeons more than others after all, but I find it curious nevertheless. Melina tilts her head to the side and hums, mulling things over. It's a trivial thought, but having Melina, who was small even when lined up in comparison to Kokoru, saying complex stuff looks like somewhat of a kid acting like an adult, is something I find adorable. If I said that out loud though, things would definitely get ugly. And as when I was thinking that, Sir Alvin, Ms. Melina. Don't you hear that? Kokoru, who was looking around, prompted me to listen carefully. Putting my ears out, I could hear something. And what's more, it's coming closer. It's there. Something's coming from behind. I go in front of Melina and Kokoru. There was no place for us to hide, and it's the vanguard's job to be a wall for the backline. Finally, it appears into view. Monsters. A school of mermen nonetheless. Scaly, fish-headed humanoids are approaching us en masse. Mermen are akin to goblins in that they can sometimes be spotted as swarms, but the number of them here was quite staggering. It looks like the swarm was chasing a human. Adventurers to be exact, and judging from the outfit, a thief. It was a lone, short-statured person running away towards our direction. I'll be saying something obvious, but with those numbers, it can't be dealt with, solo. And it doesn't seem like she's pulling the mobs as a way to lure them to an entrapment point like Melina. The escaping adventurer notices us over here and opens their eyes wide in surprise. Huff, huff, ah. Run. Run away? Is it even possible to? Unless you're at least a thief, or a scout, there's no way to escape the monster's aggro from here. As I unsheathe my sword, runs up in front of me. Let me go in first. Kokoru, a buff for the lightning attribute if you will. Oh, on it. Thief. Dodge to the side when I give the signal. I could see the figure of the adventurer nod. Melina proceeded to lower her staff and began chanting. Now. The thief swerves to the wayside, sticking close to the dungeon wall. The next moment, numerous flashes of lightning emitted from Melina's wand, flying in towards the swarm. Several mermen dissipate to dust in one blow along with dropping items and coins. I mutter under my breath at the sight. Amazing. With that, it might have been cut down in half. It's a spell that can be used once you get to level 35, plus, I'm enchanted with Kokoru's buff. Now then, I guess we'll continue on the rest the same way as we've done so far. Yeah, I ready my sword. Let's go, same formation as we've done so far. We engage the swarm. The opponents aren't a big deal. They probably could be defeated without an incident. The sword is swung, the spells are weaved. The mermen scatter one after the other, leaving drops in its wake. While the battle ensued, I glanced around. The thief's hands rested on the wall, eyesight locked towards us. Chapter 18. After we successfully wiped out the merman, the thief led us to the safe point on the 32nd layer. Sorry about that. Thanks for the save. The adventurer that brought us here said so as she sat on the ground in front of me with a joyous smile. I accidentally attracted a huge herd of them. I was going to shake them off my tail, but I brought on you guys quite a bit of trouble instead. Oh yeah, Tet's the name. What you see is what you get, thief is my trade. The thief called themselves as Tet. Black sort of long hair, a voice that was a bit on the high-pitched side, and has androgynous features, so I was at a loss, but if I had to take a gamble, based on the name and tone, I'd go with him being a boy in his mid-teens. He also looks to be younger than Kokoru and Melina, I think. He seems to not be that far off from my age when I became an adventurer. I shake my head, replying back. No worries, adventurers should help each other when needed anyhow. I'm Elven, a swordsman. Over there is Kokoru, a priest, and Melina, a mage. We met in this dungeon and formed a temporary party. Oh? A temporary one? I guess things like that happen. Even so, you look strong. Are you guys the sort of people who can dive in the lower levels even when solo? Guess you could say I could, but I have done it a few times. I'm afraid of messing up, so I generally avoid it. I've never done it alone. Even though the two of them said that, they could probably give me a run for my money if they do dive solo. With a spirited smile, Tet talks back, doing it as a mage is an incredible feat. Miss Priest's case makes sense. There's no point in a support class going to the depths after all, but it's cool being a high-level priest and all. I was right in assuming that you're the type of person who's accustomed to soloing, mister. There's only 3 of you, but you're a pretty high-level party already. Now that you mention it, you might be right. Thanks to Kokoru, the party's level average is higher than my own. Looking back, this might have been the first time I've joined a party where I'm not the highest leveled one. Until now, I've always been slipping into fledgling parties to help them level up or something along those lines. Moving on though, are you alone? Righto, then why are you by yourself here of all places? Why, you mean? It's as if you're saying that it isn't a thief's job to be doing things solo. I'm rummaging for treasure chests and earning XP by the wayside. Tet says with a chuckle. The class displayed in the status window changes the benefits you receive on a case-by-case basis. For example, a swordsman would have his STR increased to match his class, and having the attack power of sword-type weapons go up along with it. A mage or a priest on the other hand, will have their MP and WIS attributes increase and will be able to use attack and support magic respectively. In line with that, a thief will have their AG increase, and knives and throwing weapons would have an attack boost while simultaneously sharpening the success rate of unlock items like lockpicks greatly. The lower the level the treasure box is in, the better items it would have, but on the offside, more of them would be locked. Since other classes have no other option but to rely on expensive unlock items, more than half of the abyss-level chests are monopolized by the thief class. They are profitable without relying on drops. They have a reasonable amount of combat power, and could escape large mobs of enemies with their high agility. With those factors combined, it is said that the thief is the most suited class for solo. In fact, Tet's play style wasn't uncommon in the slightest. Even though I look like this, my level is up the no. Being at this layer is a cinch for me. I can believe that. Beating the merman was a breeze for you. Tet had joined the battle midway and he looked to be masterful in using the knife and throwing weapons. I even remember his weapons looking considerably expensive. Just those factors alone show how good he is. I do have another question though. Why this dungeon though? There are better places for you to dive solo in. You could say that, but those places are way too hot on everyone's lists, so the number of chests you can gather becomes sorely limited. The upsides here are that there's no one here, and although somewhat small, it is deep. It's a surprisingly good out-of-the-way place. So that's why. I get where he's coming from. Even though we were both solo, it's a whole different matter if you were a swordsman or thief. I thought for sure that you also had a minus skill. Minus skill. Ah, did you guys come here cause you believed that rumor that got around? Rumor? That the boss here drops an item that removes a skill. Ha ha ha, no way that stuff's true. What makes you say that, huh? Melina presses for an answer in annoyance. I do think I've checked most of the information available for this place through the flavor text surrounding it, and at the very least, I don't think my interpretation of it is that far off from the truth. What makes you sure? It's easy when you think about it. Nothing like it's happened before. I'm a thief, so I know my thing or two about item drops, yet there's nothing like it if the rumors are to be believed. There aren't even skills or magic that comes close to that sort of effect, much less an item having it. If there was such an item, it would be extremely rare. I'd be reaching out there if I were to say if an item like that would exist in a small-scale dungeon such as this one. There are items that bring down parameters though, and in terms of buffs, pseudo-skills like physical pen. It's not a stretch that the opposite of that could be true. All of it's just temporary, right? No way there's an item that could tweak your own status to stay as is forever. Tet says with a laugh. Am I right to think that the one who has the minus skill is you, big sis? I'm sorry to break it to you, but it would be better for you to temper your expectations. And besides, no matter how high your levels are, it would be tough to defeat the boss with only just the three of you, so turning around here would be the smart thing to do, don't you think so? Melina was discouraged, lips zipped tight. It's her we're talking about here, logic is king. Maybe it's not so much that she's in a bad mood, but she's probably thinking that Tet's point of view had some truth to it. At any rate, I declare my thoughts. We appreciate the advice, but we'll have to forego it. Why? All of us here went into this dungeon for that boss drop. It's not something we can give up on no matter how low the possibility is. Tet's smile fades. You guys probably don't know about this. The dungeon goes up to 40 levels. Naturally, the boss resides the 240. It wasn't anywhere near what I was expecting. It's basically a mid-sized dungeon at that point. No way I couldn't have done it solo, much less have a shot at the boss without at least having a party of 4 with the same level as me, maybe even more. My point still stands though, with only the 3 of you, turning back is the better option no matter how high of a level you're at. Still. I don't want to turn back. It's deeper than I expected, that much is true. I might not even get to have a chance to defeat the boss after coming all this way, but I like to at least reach the boss room and confirm its attributes and attack patterns. It's for the sake of going in fully prepared next time. I took a peek behind me to see Melina and Kokoru nodding in agreement. Their will outweighs the uncertainty involved for them. So you're going to go no matter what, huh? Yeah? Oh well then. Tet stood up and sighed in resignation. No use in stopping you. I guess I'll help you go as far as the boss room then. The 3 of you don't have the area down here mapped, haven't ya? I'll be your guide then. I've been to the end once and my knowledge of the monsters here will come handy when it comes to efficiently clearing this place. You don't want to be sapped out of energy by the time you get to the boss, right? That would be a welcome help. It's decided then. I've sniffed clean the chests around here earlier anyhow. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Here, bottoms up. Tet took out 4 vials out of storage and held it out, a yellow-green liquid swirling inside. It's some kind of potion. It's a potion that grants poison resistance. This baby can even stop the deadlier ones. Poisonous monsters will be coming out the woodwork from here on out, so you better use it. If it's poison resistant, then my buffs could be used. You'll end up using MP, and it will end up expiring quickly with it being a buff and all right. With this you'd be duty-free for hours. I'm thankful for the offer but ... Are you sure about just giving it to us? No problemo, take it as an apology for getting me out of a tight spot. Tet handed a bottle to each and one of us, with the last one saving for himself, gulping it down. Let's get a move on. Signaling with our eyes we stood up. I was worried about the boss level and things like the drop, but fortune fell on our laps. I'm genuinely grateful that we get to know the paths and safe points without having to scout out the locations. With those thoughts in mind I took a gulp of the potion and ... Not a moment later I dropped to the ground. My legs won't move. I tried to get up but my hands weren't doing any good too. I could only do the slightest of movements as if my whole body's sensations have been robbed. In spite of the confusion, there was one thing I know about what had transpired. Letters had appeared in the corner of my eye. Chapter 19. Wahaha, you lot are a bunch of blockheads too. Drinking what a thief serves without a hint of doubt. You people are a riot. Grinning from ear to ear, Tet looks down on us. At. Despite my efforts to ask back, my mouth barely moves, with my words barely making a whimper. Tet notices my gaze and shakes the empty vial in his hand. Oh, you mean this one? Of course, the one that I drank is the real poison resist potion. The ones I handed to you were a little thing called Lime Toad's paralytic poison. The colors are pretty similar, don't you think? He says, as he flings the vial by the wayside. Moving my head with the slight leeway that I had, I looked behind me. I can see Melina had collapsed to the ground as well. I couldn't see Kokoru, but from the two empty vials rolling on the floor, I could guess that she drank it too. Now then, if we're gonna talk about what a thief would do in this situation, it's been set in stone right from the get-go. Mister, I'll be borrowing your hand for a second. Tet took my hand and manipulated it to open my status window. With that, the list of items appears and he scrolls through it. Although I said that, my storage is pretty loaded right now. Even though a thief is good at nicking items, its carrying limit is the same as the other classes. I didn't think I'd run into you guys here. Too. This looks like a great find. Along with Tet's monologuing, my potions, spare equipment and the like appeared out of nowhere, falling to the ground rolling. Just then, I felt the faintest vibrations from the ground I had fallen down on. Tet was absorbed in operating the status screen so he didn't notice. That's that for you, mister. Next up is the mages. Once Tet looked up, a mace resoundingly swung at his head. Ah? Tet falls to the ground. He recovers quickly, however, without a gap in his movement, and readies his knife facing towards his opponent. A clear expression of agitation can be clearly seen on his face. Ha ha. How can you move? I don't think I've told you yet. Kokoru replies calmly, mace at the ready. I have the paralysis resistance, large skill. I recall her having it. While I don't remember seeing it in her status window, I did see her fight normally after being hit by a paralyzing arrow of the yellow goblin archer. What a nice skill you have there. Tet had a stiff expression as he says so. Just one more thing. Why did I lose so much HP? I'm level 80 after all. 0.80? I'm a priest, but I'm positive that my STR is higher than yours. Enlighten me on what you are going to do, Mr. Thief. I was lying face down, collapsed as I listened to Kokoru. Somehow, I feel scared of Kokoru. She isn't acting like her usual self. Do you want to battle me with your remaining HP? Grr. I can hear Tet's exasperation. From his perspective, he'd surely want to escape via using his class as a thief blessed with a higher rank than most classes, but with Kokoru guarding the one way out of the safe area, it was a huge hurdle. Seconds later, the dry sound of a knife dropping to the floor reverberated. Ah jeez. I surrender times 20. Unfair. Foul play. I don't want to be told that by you. Kokoru then starts chanting. Chanting faster than anything I've ever seen. Once she finished chanting, the sensation of light passed through my body, making me able to move in the process. It's a spell that cures status conditions. Ms. Melina, Sir Alvin, do you have any rope on you perhaps? Kokoru says without turning her back. I'm going to tie this person up. Chapter 20. Let's turn this person over to the guild. Kokoru, who had made a bump on Tet's head and tied him up, says so in a fierce tone. We can't let this thief run around solo attacking other adventurers. It's unfortunate, but we should go back to town at once with a teleport item. We could always come back here again. ... Yeah. Melina nods with a sigh. At the very least, we can't continue this adventure with things like this anyhow. We can't let this guy go unchecked, and on the other hand, I wouldn't be able to sleep well at night throwing this guy out in the middle of the dungeon. Oh, how kind of you, madam. Melina sharply glares at Tet, who talked sarcastically. On second thought, is it really that bad? We could just leave him tied up in front of a bunch of mermen. That's going too far. Alvin, think about what happened earlier. He may have purposely lured those monsters to have them do his dirty work and take us out. In other words, he set us up for a monster park. Since it's us we're talking about, we beat the horde with a problem, but if it were any other three-person party with low levels, they'd have been in deep water. This guy might be worse than a thief. An adventurer killing a fellow adventurer. If it was parking, there are various methods to it. One of it was pulling aggro from a horde of monsters and throwing it to other adventurers. Of course, what method you use is hardly the problem. Player killing is a grave taboo. How cruel of you to think of that. It was a real accident. I was surprised to see you guys here. I doubt that. Sir Alvin, may I? Kokoru pulls an object from storage, curled parchment paper. An expensive item called Map of Recall lets you return to the entrance of a dungeon no matter where you are inside it. It's a must-have item for any adventurer that plans to go to the depths of a dungeon. If it's okay with you, Sir Alvin, we can return with this. We should leave this person to the proper authorities at the guild. I'm in favor of that too. Your call, Alvin. I think back on the sequence of events that happened. After a brief hesitation, I respond. Wait. Can you give me a minute? Sir Alvin? What's wrong? They curiously asked. After another brief interval, I lay down my explanation. It's probably impossible to hand Tet over to the guild. He has a type of skill that can help him get out of restraints after all. If it comes down to it, he can get out when he needs to. There's a reason he is calm and composed. Tet's eyes widen for an instant, and then a smile curls up from him. Haha. You're overthinking things, mister. Skills aren't that conveniently had. If you were a normal adventurer with 1 or 3 skills, I would have thought so too. Thieves fight close quarters and are easily restrained by monsters, so the general consensus is that skills suited for escaping have more value to them than other jobs. Going on that train of thought, adventurers usually choose a profession that suits their skills. Isn't that the same for you? Tet looks away, as if embarrassed. Melina and Kokoru were watching me in curiosity, not following the conversation. I continue. I'm not an educated man, but when things are out of the norm, I try to think about the why. A former adventurer that taught me the way of the sword won't stop bugging me to do so. So I thought about the why this time too, yet. No matter how much I think about it, it just doesn't fit. I then asked Tet. Tet, tell me this. Why did you only try to lift the items that's essential for adventuring? I thought back to when I returned the dropped items to my inventory after he scavenged it. The items Tet tried to steal were all things I had prepared for my dive into the dungeon. But my map of recall wasn't among the items that were stolen. At the very least, the Emerald Ore and Merman's Tears should go for a higher price than cheap potions. Why did you choose only the potions and spare equipment I had, and ignoring the expensive monster drops and even the map of recall? You said you had worked your way down to the boss room. I might be mistaken, but did you want us to stop going any further? Is that why you're not making a fuss once you were caught? After a brief silence, Tet heaves a huge sigh. It's great that you've guessed that much, so I'm wondering if you could just go home quietly for me, Tilda. Since you helped me, I thought that I should at least stop you guys from going further, at least for today, but... oh well, I guess you won't listen to anything I say till you challenge the boss yourselves. Sigh. You adventurer lot are just downright stupid. That right there's the reason I don't like any of ya. Why do you say so? Kokoru asks in a low voice. What do you know about the boss that makes you stop us? You're all just going to die if you continue on. Tet's mouth raises from end to end, laughing sarcastically. The boss of this place has a secret to it. And I'm positive that no one can win against it. Chapter 21. A secret. Just what do you mean by that? Melina presses for an answer. A hint of confusion could be heard. Maps for the deeper floors here aren't in circulation. Do you have an idea why though? Why, you say. It isn't a well-known dungeon. Cartographers don't like mapping places like this since it's not profitable compared to the work put into it. I suppose that's a part of it too. But cartographers aren't the only source of maps. High-level parties that go on to raid the abyssal floors sometimes sell maps for pocket money. What about it? The reason there aren't any maps available is because no party that went in to clear the dungeon has ever come back. Every single one has been wiped out. To the boss, in fact. No way. I'd like to think that the higher level parties are a cautious bunch. They won't just challenge the boss out of the blue willy-nilly without a plan. And even if they did, they would set up means to retreat when it gets dicey. Hear me out first. I mentioned before that poison monsters would pop up in numbers further down below. They are small fry. Dealing with poison is tricky if you're not prepared for it, but you can prevent it as easily as 1, 2 and 3 with a teensy bit of poison-resist potions. It's a no-brainer that a higher-level party would come prepared for it. Poison-type monsters have low stats, so with that, there are no major obstacles. Progressing to the end would be a breeze. There are a few dark-type monsters on the final levels, but that's about it. In no time at all, one would soon be in front of the boss room. And so, the adventurers who managed to reach this point think to themselves, we aren't that scathed. So let's have a peek at the boss room. They open the door and go in, then that's the end of it. No one has come out of it, and as evidenced from the fact that this dungeon is alive and kicking, no one has cleared it. So no one has retreated from the boss fight? They didn't go back with a return item. I don't think so. I mean, the door to the boss room closes by itself right after a party enters it. You can't leave through the entrance, and I'm sure that return items are invalidated inside there. In other words, it's an inescapable boss room. That can't be right. This time, it was Kosuzu that cuts in the conversation. There's usually some kind of trick involved in an inescapable boss room. Most boss rooms that entrap adventurers have largely similar gimmicks to it in place. How could a run-of-the-mill dungeon such as this have a boss that's impossible to retreat from? It's as you say, right, that there are often tricks involved in an inescapable boss room. It's as if the dungeon doesn't want you to go and take information back with you. So having said that, there has to be some kind of trick to solve in this room as well. Only that the boss here has a secret gimmick that no high-level party could overcome. That can't be. In theory, it's probably not a displacement, damage, or restrained type trap. I think there's a rule involved in this place. Rules? How so? How do I say this simply? Tet's words trailed off with a puzzled look on his face. He has something on his mind, but can't seem to form it into words. I wonder if that's true? It does feel like something is off. Melina knits her eyebrows. So you've been watching parties challenge the boss without knowing that in silence. And how many times at that too? Not like there was anything I could do about it, you know. Tet says, a bit somber. The first and second times, I wasn't sure what to make of it. And besides, it's rude to butt in on other people's quests. I don't want to be the target of their ire after all. Still, I left them with advice. But hear this. Nobody ever listens. Either it's you guys who don't believe in my words, or they do believe me but charge right to the boss anyway. Darn, you adventurers are a piece of work, all right. I tried to successfully talk you guys out of it, but you wouldn't even listen to it. I'm sure that those parties that challenged the boss had their own set of minus skill holders. Thinking about it now, maybe that's why they are so desperate. Even so, I just wish they hadn't gone around expecting a boss drop with a questionable existence dropping in a small-scale dungeon like this and continued on with an adventure that suits their level. They were blessed with a party after all. I unconsciously cast my gaze downwards, hearing Tet's soliloquy. Now that he mentions it, I may have gone in on this recklessly. Although I wasn't blessed with a party, I had no other options. It was probably the same for Melina and Kosuzu as well. That's not it. After a brief silence, Melina spoke up. That wasn't what I was trying to get at. How did you even get into that situation? The fact that there aren't any maps for the abyssal parts. You came here without knowing about the lower levels, right? Why then? If you're scrounging for treasure chests, then isn't it meaningless to come to a small dungeon that usually tends to be on the shallow end? Why did you come here in the first place? It's strange for me that you've seen a lot of other parties walking off into the boss room. It doesn't seem like you were a part of them, so what are you doing in there? After a brief silence from him, Tet then talks. his voice showing that he was in a tight spot. Well, you can ask Mr. over there about that. Huh? You know, don't you, mister? Melina then turns to face me. You do? It's just a theory. Let me know if I'm wrong. Tet doesn't reply, and I continue talking. Tet was initially going to swipe the loot once the party defeats the boss. Huh? He was? Tet remained silent. I don't seem to be wrong in that regard. Why would you do that? I don't really have a choice in the matter, you know. If I didn't do it, there's no way I'll get the boss drop as a solo adventurer. A cynic smile from Tet arose. My current level and money were earned by kill stealing too. That's how good I am at it. ... Turning this guy over to the guild is sounding better and better by the second. It's a dick move, but it's not forbidden. The guild won't be able to act on it. I have my doubts. Casting aside the small fry monsters, if he's been habitually stealing boss drops, then I don't think the guild would stay silent. It's a matter of course that he wouldn't do that stuff if circumstances were the usual. But this time was a special case, the boss drop item. Isn't that so? Tet didn't respond. An item. The same as us. He needs an item to erase a skill at all cost. There's no need to spell it out now, do I? A minus skill. His inability to form a party locked his choices. As expected, Tet still says not a word. Melina and Kokoru raise their voices in surprise. Eh? He's the same as us too? He used a lot of skills during our battle with the merman. As far as I can tell, he had 4. After that, I just took an educated guess based from the other things that happened. High-level adventurers tend to have more skills, but since there wasn't any concrete evidence, it was only a guess. Because I'm the same, my own prejudices might have been mixed in. As it turns out though, I was right. What kind of minus skill is it? Melina asks. I shake my head in response. No clue, I haven't thought up to that far. Mummy Graver Robber. My words were interrupted by none other than Tet himself, with mention of the skill's name. He says so with a laugh, as if mocking himself. It's a bugger of a skill, I tell ya. Chapter 22. Mummy Graver Robber? Not a clue. Me too. It's the first I've heard of it. Melina and Kokoru remarked. Both of their minus skills are air, but Tet's was pretty up there too as far as commonality goes. There are 3 high-level adventurers here, but not one of us knows about it. I can't even begin to guess what it was from the name alone too. Although I have this strange feeling. I then question Tet, what kind of skill is it? It's simple really. Tet replies light-heartedly. I take on all the debuffs of party members is the gist of it. Hold up. Really? Just the debuffs? Yep, amazing. I couldn't have imagined there was a skill like that. The 2 casters in the party speak out excitedly. I then ask them, unsure what to think of it myself. Is it that unusual? Yes. Buffs and debuffs are essentially one and the same when it comes down to it. In terms of our status, it's listed as additional effects and are treated one and the same. Oh, so that's how it works, believe it. There's a reason there's no such thing as magic that removes or prevents only the debuffs. Kokoru's clear spell erases buffs as well, remember? It's an extremely rare case when a skill distinguishes between buffs or debuffs. I don't even know if there's anything like it. Yeah, that seems to be if. The description of the skill backs it up by saying it has negative additional effects instead of debuff. Tet chimes in with a laugh. But for me it straight up sucks, you know. I'm not well versed in things like this, but is that really considered a minus skill? Kokoro follows up with a question. To put it into perspective, if all the party members receive a debuff of endurance reduction, small, then it would only be you who receives it, right? Isn't that a perk more than anything else? It's not such a reasonable skill as how you think it is. Tet then elaborates its effects further. In normal circumstances, the same debuff wouldn't change its effects no matter how many times it's cast on you, but this skill amplifies it for each one you receive. That endurance reduction, small, would turn to special once you take in the fourth one. That's unreasonable. It's insanely bad once several debuffs start stacking on you. One time, all the parameters I had were reduced to less than half of my normal value. My party members bailed on me that time. I was dangerously close to dying. I went on solo after that fiasco. I vowed to never join a party again. That's as bad as it gets. I haven't gone through anything that harrowing myself. I could even sympathize with him about wanting to swipe kills and loot. Leaving that aside for now, taking on the debuffs that party members contract, then just maybe. Hold on a second, is that even true? Melina once again asks in suspicion. Tet replies to her, possibly fed up with it. You really don't want to trust anything I say, Isn't there something faulty about what he says? A single parameter reducing debuff only goes up to, at most, 40%. How would it even reach less than half? Even if I didn't have a minus skill, such a situation is entirely plausible. To give you an example, if I receive both durability decrease, special, and overall status decrease, special at the same time, this would cause the effects to stack and the value of my VIT would barely be half of what it was. So a worst case scenario happened? Not at all. Even with my minus skill into the equation, it's not often that the debuffs stack to that extent. Back then, the secondary clause of my skill was taking effect. What do you mean? My minus skill can increase or decrease in effect depending on the circumstance. The higher the reward rate at which the party as a whole gains, the stronger the effects of the debuff you will receive. Reward rate. The meaning of it escapes me. What's that? It's the first time I've heard of it. I don't get it too. What do you mean by that? From what I've figured out, it's based on the number of monster drops and the tendency of rare items' appearances. I'm not too sure I understand. Do the party members you have affect it? It does. If someone has the fortune skill, they would cause a lot more coins to drop, right? The luck skill also increases the rarity of dropped items, while the drop rate plus type skills increase the number. If there are people who possess these skills in the party, then the so-called reward rate would increase. Or at least, that's how it is from what I've learned from my investigations. He then continues, at the time, someone had the skills drop rate plus dash medium and luck. The effect of the debuff was increased in proportion to it. I just recently joined the party too, so I was careless. I get that part, but Tet glancing at Melina, who had realized some things, I then questioned Tet. You said earlier that the effect of the debuff can fluctuate. Am I wrong in thinking that if you're in a party on the opposite end of that, a one with a low reward rate, then it would lessen its effects? I guess so. No reason to believe it won't, I guess. He replies without much confidence. That's how the description lists it as. If there were people involved in the party that has the god of poverty's blessings or misfortune or even drop rate reduction type of skills, the effect would probably decrease by the severity of said skills. I've never partied with such a person before, so it's all just untested conjecture from me. How low do you think it goes? I don't get the effect of the skill either, but basing it on the opposite end, when the skill's effect increases due to the increase in reward rate, then a drop rate decrease, medium and misfortune would be enough to counteract the effects of a small rank debuff, I think. Well, I wouldn't even want to join a poor-ass party even if I was begged to. Why ask? Tet raised his eyebrows at us, who fell in silence. Let's test it out. Melina says, standing up and looking downward at Tet. Join our party for now, Tet. Chapter 23. Why the heck would I? Did my words go through one end and out the other? No parties. Never mind that, go with us for the meantime. If you do as I say, then I'll let you off the hook. And with that out of the way, Tet was added to our party and we headed out of the safe area towards the 32nd layer. Looking at us, Tet in his curiosity spoke up. Why aren't we headed to the lower levels? Well, for now, I'd like for us to take out a few monsters on this layer. If I'm not mistaken, there were some here that inflicts debuffs here. Did you want to check out Mummy Graver Robber for yourself? No harm in it, I guess. I do want to look at it, but it isn't quite what Tet is imagining it to be. Sir Alvin, look over there. I take heed of Kokoru's alert and also look towards the monster that appeared from our front. Is that a frost chimera? It has two heads, a lion's and a goat's. Feathers sprout from its back, and the tail is the head of a snake with a body dyed in sky blue, showing off its affinity to water and ice. A frost chimera is a powerful monster and appears in the abyssal layers once in a while. It's been a long time since I last saw it. I didn't expect to find one here. I should relay a modicum of info to the others. It breathes out a freezing ice breath. It can reach the backline, so watch out. As I was saying so, its lion head had promptly taken its stance. I ready my sword as I click my tongue. I moved too slow. Although in terms of levels, it wouldn't be a problem even if it was taken head-on, and soon after, as I was pondering things over, a blade glitters at the edge of my field of view. A throwing blade shot out and flew straight to the snake tail that would swing behind the lion head. Then and there, the frost chimera staggered grayly. The lion head grunts with a tremble, staggered out of readying its attack. It's a huge opportunity to strike. Miss Mage, cast your lightning magic. Tet hollers an order, and Melina's response was quick. The frost chimera was on the cusp of taking another stance, but Melina's chant finished right on cue. A lightning bolt raises through in between the lion and goat heads. With that, its stance is cancelled with another intense knockback. All of its three heads contort in pain. Gosh, can't you just die already? Tet sprinted forward as he said so. It might be thanks in part his high agi, as the distance between him and the frost chimera instantly closed. But with this it can finally. With a medium-sized knife reverse gripped in hand, Tet swung down his arms at lightning speed. It might have been crafted with some sort of special material, as it left an orange afterimage as it arced downwards. And finally, the frost chimera's HP drops to 0 and its body disperses into thin air. Tet takes a breath in the midst of the scattered drop items. Sorry about that, I went and took the kill. That's impressive. I blurted out my honest thoughts. So a frost chimera's weakness is its snake tail. I didn't know that at all. It seems like it, huh? Huh. You didn't know? Yeah? I haven't seen a chimera before, let alone a frost one. I don't know how to explain this, but isn't it something like you just know or something? Hearing that, the three of us exchanged looks and then I don't get it at all. What do you mean? No one should have any trouble in figuring out the weak point just by looking at it. Eh? Tet scratched his head, troubled on how to explain. I'm not sure myself. I rarely miss the weakness these days. What do you look for when you make that kind of judgment? A monster's weakness is different for each type. HNNN and tilde. I guess you can figure it out by putting yourself in the mindset of the one who made them. The guy who made it? Yep, that's right. Tet pauses for a second then continues. You guys haven't heard of it? This world is a simulation. If you go by that logic, then chances are, there's a person who created it, don't you think so? In dungeons, there is no such thing as a monster that can't be beaten and no weapons that are overpowered. When all is said and done, the place is pretty balanced. It wouldn't be too far-fetched to think that the weak point would be in a well-thought-out spot. Well thought out. And another thing. If someone told you that the weakness is the mole on the left foot, you won't think, oh, I would have figured it out sooner or later. Something that unreasonable can't be found in a dungeon. With that, I could make a loose prediction. It's a skill I've acquired through fighting countless times alone, but I'd have bet on the fact that you three would have come to the same conclusion. I nod in assent as I replied to Tet, who explained as best as he could. Not at all. I have heard of the boxed garden hypothesis, but say that it was correct. I don't agree that each dungeon or monster was designed according to someone's will. Is that true? I would have to abstain from putting a comment. It's on account of my faith as a priest. I then talked to Kokoru, who had a sullen face about her as she held her opinion. Putting that aside for now. How is it, Kokoru? Suddenly remembering, Kokoru opened up the status window. Then with eyes wide open, there isn't any. It's as expected. Nice one. Looks like our prediction was right. I slightly shake in excitement. Is this what I think it is? No way. What's the matter with you all? If you want to see the effects of Mummy Grave Robber, then it's best that we go find a different monster. The three of our gazes meet and nod. Yeah, we should. I want to check what would happen if it's a normal debuff. I'm curious about it too. Tet casts us quite a doubtful face. You guys are a bunch of weirdos. Chapter 24. Geez. Who gives a hoot about me being able to find weaknesses? I have something better for ya guys. Behold my knife. Its STR value may not be up to match with Madam Priest, but this baby packs quite the punch. Sounds like a pretty rare find. Although, you probably nicked it off of some party now, didn't you? Like hell I did. I found it myself on the 50th floor of the Dragon God's Palace. You went up to the 50th floor alone? What level are you? A solid 55, my. You were a higher level than me and Alvin. Let me just say this, it's not often you get an opportunity to kill Steel, so I got most of my exp solo. I can believe that. If your level is high enough, then going about it the normal way is the better option. But, he still lied to us, didn't he? That's because, While listening to their conversation, a blue lizard-shaped monster appeared in front of us. An aqua salamander, lucky us. It blasts out the agility reduction, small debuff. Yeah? We've been wandering around for quite a lot, so it's great that we can finally check it out. Approaching the small and nimble creature, I did a weak stab. If it loses too much HP, then it can't use its attack that causes the debuff, so I need to adjust my strength. Grr. With a cry, it spat out bubbles, the cause of the agility debuff. I take the attack head on and stab its weak point soon after. Looking back as I'm amidst the vanishing body, Tet had already opened his status window. Come look at yours too, mister. Yours doesn't have a debuff icon, right? In exchange I have, eh? Tet tilts his head. ... Strange. Why don't I have it too? You didn't avoid it, did you? Well, of course you didn't. How can this be? Tet knits his eyebrows as he's affixed his eyes on the status screen. What's this insane amount of exp? I didn't even kill it, eh? My stats went up a crap ton. Is this someone's skill? How'd this even happen? The debuff portion of my skill isn't applied to Kokoru AI there. With this, our questions have been answered succinctly. Melina closes her status screen. Tet, who was yet to catch on, was then informed of a consensus by Melina. Join this party, Tet. Didn't I do just that a while ago? Oh yeah, I mean that's not it. How do I say this? Stay with me forever. Tet turned his sights elsewhere, shaken by what he heard. What are you saying? Even if you just up and tell me that out of the blue, enough of this poppycock. I'm telling you to become an official member. Eh? Is that what you meant? You scared the daylights out of me. Tet then continues to talk, in the dark with all that's happened. Before talking about whether that's a good or bad thing. What's with all this talk about me joining all of a sudden? Does this have anything to do with my weird status, burst in experience, and the three of you mumbling about this and that? Fine, I'll start explaining from the beginning then. Melina then informs Tet of the matter. First off, the three of us possess minus skills. All three? Not just you? Indeed. Didn't Alvin tell you from the get-go that we all mate in this dungeon? Each of us came here for the boss drop. So that's how it was. You did mention it was a temporary party that you built in this dungeon. That's not the whole story though. The only reason we formed a party together was because our minus skills meshed together very well. A 1 in a billion chance ticket. Maybe it would be easier to explain if I start with Kokoru's skill. As if on cue, Kokoru nods and starts elaborating. My minus skill is called. If a party member defeats a monster, then it would be considered as my kill. All of the kill bonus experience would go to me, and even if the person in question has a drop rate increase or fortune skill that should have activated upon defeating a monster, it would become invalidated. What a rare skill. That explains your high level then. I have to say this though. What a detestable skill. I'd have to agree. It really is. Kokoru chuckles a smile. Judging by the look of things, Tet had immediately understood what Kokoru's skill entails. Although, why did the two of you decide to team up with Kokoru? Guess it's my turn to explain. Melina presents herself forward to compound. My minus skill is Chapter 24 Part 2. Tet tilts his head. Miss Kokoru doesn't have a debuff icon. It looks like ... You're sure that it's a debuff, right? Correct. Then why ... No, scratch that. It shouldn't even be on Miss Kokoru. If it's a debuff, then I would have it ... or at least, it should be. Tet then continues, looking confused all the while. Come to think of it, even the Aqua Salamander's debuff isn't the. Why is the effect of Mummy Graver Robber gone? That's because it isn't. The debuff is just gone because of another effect. What do you mean? Mummy Graver Robber has a secondary effect, right? Yeah. The effect of the debuff fluctuates depending on the so-called reward rate of the party. Sir Alvin, it's your turn. Tet then stares at me, as I ready my explanation with an exhale of my breath. My minus skill isn't as rare as these twos. It's just. Tet's eyes popped out as he screamed in disbelief. Special of all things. It's not even small or medium. Yep. I find it hard to believe that someone with that terrible of a skill would still become an adventurer. That stings. But that clears things up. With that our reward rate would end up being. That's right. I don't know how calculates the reduction, but with at least a single special class minus skill it seems that it can nullify a small class. So that explains why and is gone. The reduction rate of Jealous God's curse is lower than, so it stands to say that its supposed rank is lower. Even so, something still doesn't add up. How so? When Alvin defeated the Aqua Salamander and the Merman, the items and coins still dropped normally, right? A rank of special on the drop rate debuff should amount to 80% if I'm not mistaken. You're right about that. But aren't you forgetting about my skill? Kokoru says with a smile. So Alvin's skill wouldn't be taken into account. This party was created when I first met Kokoru. That was the reason why I begged her to party up with me. It was quite recent, but it felt like ages ago. With you joining, this skill just come to a full circle. Looking at it, you're right about that. To each one before it cancels out the negative part of the skill. That's not all. Melina chimed in. The 10% increase in stats is still put into effect without the downside. The minus has turned into a plus. It's a synergy. Kokoru says in a soft voice. Noticing our gazes, Kokoru talks panikedly. When skills are compatible with each other and build upon their effects, it's called synergy, right? Like and. Our minus skills are exactly like that. What she said is true. The four skills together are a sum vastly greater than its parts. A curse into a boon. So with that said, here is our Tet. I say to Tet, who was sort of disoriented with the barrage of information. We need your skill. No, even as just a thief, there's no one better to ask for than you. Won't you join us? But I know why you don't trust parties. I'm also a minus skill holder too. I've had people that I trusted turn their backs on me more times than I can count. But it's exactly because why you should trust us. We're all in the same crummy boat after all. Heck, even if it's just for this dungeon. I want us to challenge the boss here with you. There's probably no other party out there with a high average level and numerous skills. I'm sure that the four of us can take on any trick it might have up its sleeve. It's as you said. There's no guarantee that there's an item that can erase skills. But why not take a gamble? It's for our future. Tet was silent for a while but then faced us afterwards and gave a slight nod. Okay. You win. I'm glad. If you ever betray me, I'll curse you and turn you into an undead monster. Without you we wouldn't be able to remove the curse type debuff. I'll make sure that won't happen. What the heck is that response? Tet chuckled as he said so. I was worried on how it would turn out, but Alvin managed to catch you hook, line and sinker. I feel conflicted about that, since I feel like I'm getting better at pleading to people for some reason. I didn't mean to tease you on that, but I pleaded sincerely with all I can is all. Ah, before we forget, let's collect the aqua salamander drops. We better gather it up or it'll despawn. After saying so, Tet cantered off towards the loot. As he stored a few coins and items into his inventory, he suddenly stopped all actions. He stares at one of the items he gathered. What's wrong? Did the aqua salamander really drop this? In his hands was rolled up parchment. Chapter 25. Melina and Kokoru ran up to me to see what was going on. Parchment? Did the monster drop it? I think so. It's probably another part of the flavor text of this dungeon, I then explained to the three people looking at me. It's not common, but monsters can sometimes drop parchment with writings on it. The monster accidentally swallowed it. Or at least that's how it probably was configured as. Configured? If this world really is just simulated, then it's how it would appear as. The will of the creator, so to speak, as Tet put it as. Unlike normal living things, monsters don't eat anything. They may bite as an attack, but that's about it. What's on it, I wonder tilde? Tet spreads open the parchment, with the three of us looking over the shoulder. Red to yellow, yellow to green, green to blue, blue to violet, and as the sun wanes, darkness reigns. This might just be our clue to the big bad at the end of the tunnel. Ah, you might be onto something. Being pointed out, I also notice. This matches the order of appearance of the monsters so far. Red for fire. Yellow for paralysis. Green is for plants and the emerald golem. Blue, water and ice. And finally the poison and dark monsters that appear on the final levels. Melina then says, a little disappointed. If this dungeon would have that, then it should have been at least on the upper levels. What's the use of finding it now? I agree. We already know what pattern the monsters appear in. It's not even classified as a hint if it's placed this far down. In the end, we still don't understand the rules governing the monsters here. Yeah? They weren't separated by attributes. Did you guys not realize it? Realize what? When I ask back, Tet replies with a blank look. It's a rainbow. What is? The monsters appear in the color of the rainbow. It's as he says. The color of the monsters were divided per level. The text wasn't a hint, but an answer. Still. Is that so? What's the order for the colors of the rainbow? Geez guys. He's right. Melina, who had been pondering by herself, calmly affirms Tet's statements. Red, yellow, green, blue, and violet from top to bottom. It matches, don't you think? I wouldn't have guessed that to be the pattern the monsters appear in. I'm not sure myself, but I trust Melina on this one. But is there any meaning in it? It might be a stretch, but it could be a hint for fighting the boss. Even I'm at a loss there. Tet claims. As a hint it doesn't have enough for us to go off on. If it's not a hint, it might be the overlying theme to this dungeon. The sun wanes pertaining to the sunset, right? So the dark attribute monsters appear at the bottom layer. So the sun is the theme? Or is it the colors of the rainbow? Come to think of it, I've heard that colors have an order regardless of the rainbow. If you sort items of similar types but different colors in the storage, they would always be in the same order, rather even different kinds fall under the same arrangement. Sadly, knowing that doesn't seem to be of any help in clearing the dungeon. I was wondering whether or not it would help in guessing the trick behind the boss room. Maybe there really is a hint somewhere, just that we haven't found it yet. Or maybe we already did but weren't able to realize it. Found but not realized? I mull it over, but no dice. Nothing comes to mind. For now, let's just move onward, I urge, as the three were deep in thought. We may find another one further down below. As Tet said, we can advance as far as the front of the boss room without a problem. We can think about it then. The three of them nodded. A agreed. Let's get a move on. No use in overthinking when we aren't even there, I guess. I don't go there too much, so there might be a hint there I haven't found yet. I smile, and standing in front of them I continue walking. I have no basis for it, but I feel like with this party we can conquer any dungeon. Tet, yeah? Calling out to him, Tet cantered towards my side. I'd like to go over the safe spot on the 33rd floor. Sure, it isn't far from where we went back from. How about I map out the area once we get there? I appreciate if you would, Tet says as he passes by me, walking backwards. Oh yeah, why don't we scout the area too while we're at it? I have the detection skill so I can see the monsters from far away. That's great, but you don't need to scout far too forward. I wouldn't be able to help you if there's danger otherwise. Okay, I say to Tet, who was beside me once again. I'm glad you joined us, Tet. It's a great help for me. That's so. Tet hums happily. I guess you would. It must have been hard being the lone vanguard, right? I can't help in terms of being a shield for the backline, but I can dish out the damage and locate enemies. Well, there's that but. But? Tet tilts his head sideways, as I answer in a hushed tone. I've been the only guy till you came along. It bothered me a bit, but it's nice to have another male in the party with you here. Tet stops, dead silent. ... Is there something wrong? I called out, but a reply didn't come. He cast his head downwards so I couldn't even see the expression on his face. He then raises his head, facing me and, dash a shout. I'm a girl. You are? I was startled. Tet then doubles down on his anger. Did you think I was a boy all this time? I was 100% sure. But the name and the way you speak. Even if it was me saying it, it reeks of a bad excuse. It's not uncommon for a girl to have a boy's name, and the way she speaks could be easily explained by her adventurer background. Once I knew the truth, I could not see her as anything but a girl. It's a bit of a confusing case, in part with the equipment she wore, but her facial features, frame, and her muscle structure are a very, very obvious tell. It's quite a wonder why I even actually thought she was a boy. Sir Alvin? Isn't that too insensitive of you? Melina and Kokoru frown at me in unison. Judging from their reactions, it seems they already knew from the first time we met her. Tet then gives me another earful as she distances herself from me. You're terrible. An idiot. Geez, who cares anymore? Go be the vanguard yourself so I can throw my knives to your back. I do wonder if there's such a party formation like that. Then the two of you be the middle guard and I'll buff and heal you two from behind. I unconsciously set my sights toward the floor and say lifelessly, ... I'm sorry, please forgive me. I should be more careful from now on.
Chapter 26. We have reached the lowest level of the dungeon. It's going to blast out a ranged attack. It shoots out by threes, so watch out. With her trusty knife in hand, Tet clung to the Abyss Demon and hollowed a caution. At the same time, the high-level demon steadily raised its scythe. After I accrued a fair amount of aggro, I ran towards Tet's side as she was also locked in combat. He aims his scythe towards us, the two close-quarters combatants. This was favorable for us. With that, our backline would be able to avoid being targeted by the ranged attack. The scythe was then swung to the ground. A shockwave of shadowy darkness soon followed, attacking us far and wide. It was the Abyss Demon's ranged attack. It's the attack that you need to be wary of the most, as it can penetrate your defensive wall and reach the backline. But Kokoru and Melina had moved to the opposite side from us too, causing them to be right outside the range. All of them can fight on this level without saying a word. Exactly just before being hit by the shadow, I activate the sword skill, parry. Withstanding a light knockback, I repel the attack. This wasn't manually done, but a defensive skill, so it can even block ethereal attacks. Still, it was by no means perfect. Being a monster from the 40th layer, my HP would still decrease by a small amount. Tet on the other hand used the dagger skill's defensive counterpart. Just then, I feel a wave of light pass through me as my HP was healed to max. It was Kokoru's heal done at an ideal timing. The Abyss Demon raises its scythe once more. Its health must have been in the red, as he's been doing a desperate triple barrage of attacks since a while ago. Just as the tip of the scythe's blade touches the ground, a gigantic ball of light from behind me comes flying through, hitting the monster. With light being its weakness, the critical damage to it was enough to send it staggering down. Its attack cancelled along with it. It was Melina's light magic. Due to its nature of being a spell, it was hard to fire in quick succession, but it had a devastating amount of power behind it. Being stunned after staggering was a chance to hit additional attacks. Or at least it would be, but the monster doesn't seem to have much left in it. I kick the ground running, closing the distance in an instant and then leaping onto the kneeling Abyss Demon. Thereafter was a flash of my sword, the activation of the swordsman skill greatsword, which greatly increases the power of a single strike, and I slashed the empowered steel right through its neck. It was a single slash, but it was enough to bring it down. The Abyss Demon had been taken the blow head-on and wiped off its remaining HP, scattering his body to the wind. Various items scattered about with its defeat. Seeing so, I take a breath, then look back towards the other party members and, good work. That went easier than I thought it would. We did it, Sir Alvin. It was disappointingly short, I'd have to say. You said it. I usually feel a chill to my bone when I come across it. It can even appear as a mid-layer sub-boss. As a normal monster, it's a rare sight if it's on the 40th layer, but it's probably the strongest class of monster in this dungeon sans the boss. Yet we were able to beat it so easily. It's easy for us to be able to fight with this party. It's nice to be able to get the kills without worrying about the loot and kill bonuses. And that was no lip service. Up until now, all of us were never able to show our full potential due to holding back and other factors. Plus, we have an excellent support, EA. You mean me? I continued praising Kokoru, who looked surprised. Yeah. The timing of your heals was flawless every time. You're a role model priest if I ever did see one. Supports are said to be the cornerstone of any true party. It is a very important role, not only for the success or failure of the quest, but also for the lives of the entire party. Yet it's also a difficult role that requires the best from you. It's especially apparent in the abyssal layers, as there are many high damage attacks that come in rapid succession. Since there are times when you may not make it by the time you actually see the attack, so your own intuition and ingenuity are relied on to anticipate who gets hit and what spells to cast in advance. Kokoru can do it as naturally as she breathed, but there are probably only a handful of people who could do the same.
Chapter 27. Shortly thereafter, we reached the 40th layer's safe area. It will probably be the last place we'd get to rest in this dungeon. After having a simple meal, everyone rested up as they pleased. By the way, this doesn't really matter much, but all of a sudden, Kokoru, who was sitting on the ground, spoke up. "What does the mummy in Mummy Grave Robber refer to, Tet-san?" Kokoru continued to ask Tet, who was lying down on her back, slowly fluttering her eyelashes. "I haven't heard of anything like this before. What does it mean?" "Ah. I don't know either." "Why don't you know? I mean, it's your skill." "I've never thought about the meaning behind a skill name. It's enough to know its effects. I think it refers to mummy type of monsters." I couldn't help but interject. Some of the original descriptions of tomb dungeons had such a reference to mummies. "Ah, is that so? Mummies are bandaged undead bodies, no. What do you do by robbing those kinds of beings, Tet-san?" "Don't ask me." "But did you understand the meaning of the skill name?" Melina, who was organizing the items she had, pitched in from the side. "Mummy will shoot a curse type of debuff, usually. If you try to steal them, it is natural to receive a debuff. The skill name probably means that you would be the one to get all of the mummy's hate. That's it. I don't really get it." "Oh. The reward rate is based on the number of mummies you can steal. So that's what it means to steal mummies." Tet leapt up and shouted. "Certainly, they seem to have understood the meaning, but I don't understand. I mean, if it's a skill name, I don't really understand Kokoru's skill name either." "Well, is that so? What do the severed heads and usurper of severed heads mean? What exactly are you usurping?" "I know this." Kokoru looked proud. "A long time ago, when humans were fighting each other, soldiers cut off the neck of the corpses and brought it back to their own side to prove that they had defeated the enemy in the war. It also means that they would get credit." "Wow! Cutting necks?" Kokoru's skill name had such a bloody meaning. "But the skill name is effective. Is that really the case? Did that actually happen?" "Of course. Or so I would like to say, but I don't know if it really happened because the scriptures only mention it vaguely." Kokoru smiles bitterly. As an adventurer priest, Kokoru didn't seem to be such a devout believer. "Speaking of scriptures, my skill name is also strange." "Why so, Melina-san?" "In the church, they teach that the God is only one supreme God. Then why do we have different gods in skills? Gods such as fertility gods, charity gods, war gods, and more are present in skill names. There are a lot of them, but who are they, if we only have one supreme God?" "Well, theologically, they're not considered as true gods. They're either alter egos created by the supreme God by dividing a part of his power, or just there in the skill name. I think there are no temples dedicated to these gods. I don't think it can be helped, so no need to think so hard. The skill name was just given by the person who made it. I don't think it's really suitable. However, it's true that there is no point in thinking so much. Tomorrow, the enemy would be in front of you. Adventurers have a lot of other things to think about, compared to meaningless stuff. I was just wondering." Tet turned to Kokoru and asked, "Could it be that you're from the seminary?" "Tet, that's I was a little upset even though I wasn't the one who got asked. Many adventurers do not want to talk about their origins. There may be various reasons, but it's easy to understand that not all of them like to do such a job out of their own choice. Therefore, it was an adventurer's implicit rule not to step inside their partner's personal background. Especially if they want to stay in a relationship for a long time. If you aren't careful with it, the party could collapse with just one question, so I was worried, but Kokoro answered so normally, that it was unbelievable. Yes. Seminary in the eastern city. But I dropped out. Ah. I see. Dropped out, huh? Nothing that bad. It's just that my parents' business took a turn for the worse and they couldn't pay my tuition anymore. I could become a priest, but I had a lot of skills. So I thought of becoming an adventurer. Actually, ever since I was in school, I had admired adventurer priests. That's a bit like me. Melina says. I was from a magic academy. Whoa, that's amazing. But I also dropped out. My parents were low-ranking aristocrats. I was the fourth daughter, and my parents had trouble finding me a suitable partner, so they wanted me to find one at the school. But somehow, I didn't like it. So, I dropped out. I had a lot of skills and a longing for a free life, which became my motivation. Both of you are amazing. I thought you would have grown up in a good environment. Tet shook her head. I'm an orphan. I wasn't in trouble because of the church, but the orphanage was just poor. I became an adventurer just for money. The amount of skills I had may have something to do with it. You're strangely strong, just like I thought. A poor orphanage is something hard to put up with. Well, I'm grateful to the director. I still go to see him once in a while and give out sweets to the kids there. Then Tet turned around. What about Alvin? Why did you become an adventurer? My voice was slightly muffled. If you think about it, it might be my first time telling another adventurer about this. Well, it's a common story. I was born in a farmer family, but I couldn't take over the farm because of my older brother. I had the strongest power and skills in my generation, so I decided to become an adventurer. An old man in the neighborhood, who was an adventurer, taught me how to use the sword. The three people who heard it say, that's normal. Normal. How normal? That's why I said it's a common story. I chuckled. But I didn't think it would be so hard because of my negative skills. I wish someone had told me beforehand. So true. I didn't think it was a minus. In case it's a rare skill, you can't tell even if you wanted to ask someone. That's right. But well, it's fine. Tet says cheerfully. Soon, we will be rewarded. In Tet's words. I instinctively turned to the dungeon that spreads beyond the safe area. The 40 layers here are the lowest layers of the setting sun cave. The boss room was already just a stone's throw away. Chapter 28. And we finally reached that place. Towering in front of me was a huge old-fashioned metal door. It was unquestionably the door to the boss room here in the setting sun cave. We've come this far. In the silence, I start off. There was something I had to ask everyone. We can also go home from here. We've been lucky enough to get quite a few items. It's a good reward for an adventure. We can even use the map of memories. I continued. If we encounter a level 40 boss, the danger is great. Moreover, it is a boss room that we can't withdraw from. Considering the existence of a gimmick whose identity is unknown, there is no need to overdo it. prepare more for now. We can try again later, or look up for more tips on how to capture it. We can sell maps and information and wait for the boss drop to hit the market. That's why. I want to hear everyone's opinions. Alvin, what do you want to do? In the silence, Kokoru said a little. I want. Mumbling slightly, I said. I want to move on. Now, we are miraculously unexhausted. No one was hurt, and there are plenty of items left. I don't think there are any more hints, and it's convenient for other parties to capture and bring boss drops to market. It's hard to think of good things. I don't think the situation will improve anymore. No matter who is missing. Only these 4 people can counteract the minus skills. That's why I think we should challenge now. It is not uncommon for adventurers to be lacking accidents due to injury or illness. By accident, the face I knew disappeared from the usual bar. I wasn't optimistic enough to believe that there would ever be a next with them. This might be the last chance. Then it's set. Kokoru laughs and says, let's go. Is it okay? Yes. If Alvin says so. Yeah? We dived into this dungeon to defeat the boss in the first place. Melina says quietly. I can't miss this opportunity. I agree with Alvin. I'm fine with that too. Tet says. It was a slightly serious tone, not the usual light tone. I'm afraid I can't withdraw, and I have no idea what the gimmick is. But I'm sure this party can be cleared. Rather, if we can't, no one can clear it. Really? I mumbled. I was relieved that I had the same feeling, but at the same time, I was a little lonely. Now our minus skills are all countered by minus effects, and on the contrary, they are positive. If we continue our adventure with this party, we don't have to bother to get an item to erase our skills. Still, the reason why we challenge the boss is that we also think that this party is not eternal. Someone may not be able to continue as an adventurer. Or they may get confused for some reason. There are actually a handful of parties that last for a long time. Even if I am alone, the world will continue on and I have to live. That is why minus skills need to be erased. I touch the door of the boss room. Then, let's go. After confirming that the 3 nodded, I exert strength onto the door of the boss room and push it open.